One Piece Supreme Control, Chapter 141-160. Chapter 141 Endgame. 3 seconds later, Drizzy's voice suddenly became anxious. Come on, boss, Lieutenant Admiral Garp is in the support unit. Yang Qing's eyes narrowed slightly, and his heart sank. It turned out to be Carp, even though he is now strong to this point, but the Team Carp still has no bottom in his heart. As Drizzt said, it was indeed time to retreat. It seems that this is the end, Qingzi. Yang Qing said solemnly. His right hand trembled suddenly, the surrounding space hummed violently, and everything within a radius of 2 kilometers stopped, and then the ground, the dust, ice, everything is suspended. Qingzi's eyes trembled, his heart became more dignified, his breath had begun to become disordered, and under the strange breath he kept touching, his physical strength was weakening all the time. Sweeping his eyes around, Qingzi saw that everything around him was caught in the control of the opposite person, and he couldn't help but be even more shocked by this person's ability. Just like a god, it can control anything, and being in it is like being in hell. Boom! The surrounding earth began to swept away, closing in the direction of the green pheasant. From a distance, it looked like the 4 corners of a piece of paper were folded in half towards the center at the same time. The terrifying power made the air a lot duller, and the sea soldiers running in the distance were even more shocked and unable to move forward. Ice Age, Qingzi said coldly, stretching out his right hand. The biting chill swept away in all directions, and this time he also used all his strength, not leaving a trace. The enemy in front of him suddenly retreated and disappeared in front of Aokiji. Qingzi's heart moved, knowing that the latter was about to leave, and he would chase after him as soon as he moved. But at this moment, Yang Qing's open right hand suddenly closed, and gave a low drink. Together. Buzz. The 4 corners rushed to the place where the green pheasant was at the same time, overwhelming the sky and the smoke and dust, directly drowning the green pheasant in it. The ground rumbled and vibrated like an earthquake, and the air suddenly suffocated, as if the end of the world was approaching, and the soaring dust moved towards the sky, alarming the people on the entire island. 10 seconds later, Qing Pheasant with a gloomy face separated the stones covering his ground, but he could no longer see Yang Qing's figure, and his eyes were even more solemn. The brief confrontation made him realize that this person was many times more terrifying than he was a few years ago. The Marines quickly came to him, watching where Yang Qing disappeared. The Lieutenant General at the back waved his hand, and a large number of Marines chased after him. Yang Qing's figure was running fast on the roof of the house. He asked in a low voice to the phone bug. Drizzt, how is it over Elni Road? Dirance has passed. There should be no problem, Captain, you can just come to the ship directly. Drizzy's voice came out, and Yang Qing nodded. Turning his head, he glanced at the sea soldiers chasing behind him, and his right hand folded. During the great earthquake, 1,000 meters in the distance, a huge wall suddenly rose, more than 20 meters high, blocking the way forward for the sailors, making them pale in shock. The Lieutenant General was taken aback and looked at the wall in front of him in surprise. This is his ability. Qingzi looked solemn, strode over, covered the wall with one hand, and the sound of clicking continued to sound. After 3 seconds, the wall suddenly turned into ice chips and disappeared here. Sakazuki chapter here. Akainu, one of the generals, remained unchanged, with only minor injuries, but in contrast, the 3 of Analu were all undeterred. 3-1, but still in a weak state. As the battle continued, the hearts of the 3 became heavier. This guy is a bit scary. Glades looked solemn. Drizzt told us to evacuate. The problem is that we can't get out at all. Bucky said quickly. Analu gasped, and the lightning on her body exploded even more. But he couldn't do anything about Sakazuki, because he didn't have control over the arrogance and domineering. You 3 bastards, in the name of justice, you will end here today. Sakazuki said coldly, the magma on his body exuding high temperature, making the surface melt. I'm in trouble now, my whole body is shaking and I can't move. Sweat dripped from Glade's forehead, and Bucky next to him was all soft. Call. Just when the three faced the most dangerous moment, the space fluctuated slightly, and Dylan suddenly appeared in the field. Prepare to evacuate, the three of you, this guy, I'll hold him. Dylan came to the scene and said quickly without hesitation. I'll stay too, Glades, Bucky, you all go first. Anilu said firmly, looking at Sakaski's eyes full of anger. Dylan narrowed his eyes, then nodded with a smile. Okay, Anilu will stay too. He knew that Anilu himself had the ability of the Thunderbolt fruit, and there was no need to worry about escaping. As long as he wants to run, few people can catch him. Bucky and Glades looked at each other and ran off. Then leave it to you two. Sakaski's face was even more angry, and he was actually run away. The magma on the ground continued to spread, and in a short moment, it had reached the feet of the two. General, come on then. Dylan narrowed his eyes and took a step forward. The figure disappeared in an instant, and a dark and domineering armed color appeared on the dagger. Gone. Sakaski's pupils shrank, and in the next second, his head tilted slightly. Huh. A ray of light appeared, his hair was. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. He cut off several of them, landed on the magma, and burned into dust in the blink of an eye, causing his pupils to squint slightly. Armed color. With a wave of Dylan's dagger, the whole person retreated backwards, the armed domineering on the dagger quietly receded, and the domineering control of the whole body. Under Sakaski's attack, he evaded nimbly, like a leaf blown by the wind, so that the former could never touch him. This guy. Sakaski's eyes shrank, feeling difficult. On the side, Anilu's lightning flashed and attacked again, and Sakaski punched out, blocking the latter's lightning. But at this moment, Dylan's also slowed down and kicked out with a violent kick. The jet black armed color covered on it made Akainu's pupils shrink. Can't escape. Bang. A loud sound came out, and Akainu was kicked out. Dylan swept his eyes and saw that Bucky and Glades could no longer be seen, and quickly said to Anilu, go. Anilu did not hesitate, his figure flashed, and he disappeared in a sudden lightning flash. Dylan turned his head and saw Sakaski rushing up with his fists waving hot lava. Armed color. Dylan snorted, his fists filled with dark aura, and then the two of them unceremoniously shot. Da da da. Dylan took 3 steps back in a row, his face slightly changed. What a powerful force. Don't try to run away. Sakaski let out a roar and chased after him again. Chapter 142. No one can stop it. See you next time, Mad Dog, when there is a confrontation between you and me. Dylan's eyes flashed, and he took a step forward. Ripples appeared in the space in front of him, and the next moment, he disappeared in front of Akainu. When it reappeared, it was already 100 meters away. Sakaski stared at Dylan's in the distance, clenching his fists, his face full of anger, but there was nothing he could do. Another flash, Dylan's has disappeared. In the center of the Chambord archipelago, a large number of Marines scattered, searching for the pirates here. The cloak of justice fluttered in the wind, and the burly middle-aged man with the dog's head hat stuffed the donut into his mouth one by one, and then chewed it ruthlessly, making a crisp sound. This figure is Lieutenant General Garp. He is full of aura. At this moment, his face is expressionless, and his whole body exudes an aura that is not angry and powerful. How about the Holy Land? Garp asked quietly, but his eyes were looking at the two most obvious places of war in the Chambord archipelago. One is filled with high temperature, and the other is cold. It just separates the two places and looks particularly conspicuous. A Tianlong person died, and no trace of the enemy was found. Inside the Tianlong person, it was very silent, and there was no major movement. A general said softly. Garp nodded slightly, his eyes flashed, and then said, "Go to Aokiji first." A large number of sailors moved towards two places, and soon, Garp and Aokiji met. The latter did not have much injuries, but his face was pale and a little weak. "It's so laborious." Garp raised his eyebrows slightly and said in surprise. "Very strong." Chingzi said with a solemn expression. Carp nodded, then waved his hand and walked towards Sakaski's place again. 5 minutes later, several people gathered with Sakaski, but the latter was a little embarrassed. His clothes were blackened in many places, his face was full of anger, and the high temperature on his body had not completely cooled down. After that, the three of Garp acted together and ordered the navy to hunt down all the pirates on the island. This time, a large number of pirates suffered, and countless unknown pirates were captured by the navy, but the other spiritual ones had already escaped from the island and fled on the Shanghai City pirate ship. The Grim Reaper Pirates. The Reaper was moored in a hidden area, but it was not discovered by the Marines. Yang Qing and everyone quickly completed the assembly. Seeing everyone was there, he breathed a sigh of relief and showed a smile. You did a great job this time, and everyone was great. Yang Qing said loudly, next, we will go to the Seven Waters, retrieve our own ships, and then set off to Fishman Island, sailing towards the New World. Okay, Dylan's and the others laughed. Everyone got on the Reaper, then started the ship, cut through the sea, and headed back towards the route they came from. Half an hour later, 4 warships appeared in front of them blocking the road. Captain, sailor, Drizzt exclaimed. Yang Qing narrowed his eyes, and then said, go straight to it. Okay, Dylan shouted, holding on to the rudder, and the Reaper suddenly accelerated. In the distance, the 4 warships reacted at the same time. Alert! Alert! Spot the Reaper pirates and start firing shells. On the 4 warships, majestic voices continued to sound. As the sound of ka-ka-ka came out, countless pitch-black shells cut through the sky and blasted towards the death god. Shish! The sound of one after another kept coming out, making the whole sea lively. On the Reaper, all the crew members were busy. Drizzt flipped his right hand, and the hidden little king appeared. There was a smile in his eyes, and he murmured softly, it's not a waste to use it here. Then, the cards suddenly flashed a violent scarlet light. Above the sky ahead suddenly became dull. Above the 4 warships, a large scarlet light appeared, and a huge little king card appeared in the air. Countless sailors looked up at this strange scene, stunned and full of doubts. What is this? Press. On the Reaper, Drizzt pressed his right hand. The huge card hummed and pressed down on the 4 warships. In an instant, the sea fluctuated, and the 4 warships became undulating, as if a large area of land was about to fall, and the sailors panicked. Ah, that thing is about to be pressed down, help. It's going to die, what the hell is this? I shouldn't be a sailor, it's all over. Countless shouts were uploaded, and the 4 warships were instantly paralyzed. The 3 Aokiji who had just arrived here narrowed their eyes when they saw the huge card. Green Pheasant strode forward with heavy eyes. These people are really scary. He took a few steps to the beach, stretched his right hand into the sea shallowly, and said indifferently, Ice Age. Click. The sky was cold, and the sea was frozen. Looking from the coast, the boundless sea was completely frozen by Aokiji's ability, and even the edge could not be seen. At the same time, the card also fell, and it was about to touch 4 warships. Ice thorns, the Green Pheasant said coldly while walking on the frozen sea. Puff puff. On the sea, countless sharp and huge icicles suddenly appeared, heading towards the sky, but they pierced the card in an instant. Then there was a sound of boom, and brilliant fireworks erupted in the sky, and the sky-high flames burned above the cards, exploding continuously. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. On the warship below, the seamen saw this scene, and the sweat on their faces rubbed out. This card is so terrifying, it is certain that if it really falls on the warship, none of them will even think about living. Immediately afterwards, a large number of sailors behind Aokiji rushed towards the frozen sea. Their target was the death god pirates who were trapped in the sea. Boss, this is trouble. Drizzy's eyes were a little dignified. Looking around, almost the entire sea was frozen. At the same time, Aokiji's voice also rang out. This frozen sea can last for 5 days, you can't escape. Yang Qing narrowed his eyes, then laughed. It's okay, we have to go, no one can stop us. He stretched out his right hand in the shape of a claw, and then closed it fiercely towards the void in front of him and grabbed it violently. Crampons. This move turned into breaking ice cubes. Between Yang Qing's right hand and the claws, the air in a radius of 2 kilometers suddenly trembled. Strange fluctuations appeared in the void, and then the next moment, in Qingzi's shocked eyes, the frozen sea suddenly trembled. Roar. As if the roar of a beast sounded, the frozen sea surface actually shattered, and then several ice dragons smashed and hung, rising into the sky, condescending, staring fiercely at the rushing sea soldiers. Almost in a short time, the entire sea surface with a radius of 2 kilometers trembled, and the ice cubes shattered, revealing the blue ocean again. Chapter 143 Keeping the Promise. In the whole sea, countless circling dragons began to fly, causing the shock of countless seamen. Even the 3 of Qingzi's eyes narrowed and became extremely solemn. The ice layer on the sea surface was actually cracked, and at this moment, even they were at a loss. In the corner of the coast of the Chambord archipelago, a white-haired figure looked at this scene with amazement in his eyes. No wonder that Guy Shanks attaches so much importance to this kid and is so powerful. In a head-to-head confrontation, he will not lose to the general in terror. Keep going. Yang Qing chuckled. Drizzt took the helm, and the Reaper began to sail slowly. On the coast, Sakaski and Aokiji both moved, and the sea was covered with ice again, accompanied by a thick layer of ice, and the lava boiled and flew towards the sky. Like flying meteorites, these magma fell from the sky and turned into terrifying bombs. Instantly dripped onto the ice dragon's head, smashed the ice dragon into pieces, and emitted white smoke. Let's go, drag it down, it's not good for us. Yang Qing said, his right hand trembled, and the death god moved slowly, and began to float slowly towards the high altitude. They're flying. The sailors looked up to the sky in amazement and couldn't believe it. Carp watched this scene quietly, watching the Reaper slowly float up, without a trace of expression, and without making a sound to stop it. His eyes flickered, and then a smile appeared. Forget it, Aokiji. What? Aokiji wondered. They can't be left. Carp gave a big smile, and then he called out to the Reaper in the sky, Boy, you've got me blown away. Yang Qing stood at the bow of the boat, looked down, and said with a loud laugh, Thank you, Lieutenant General Carp. Sakaski looked up angrily as the Reaper slowly drove away, but there was nothing he could do. Even the skills he mastered could not reach the current height of the Reaper at this moment. As the Reaper rose higher and higher, Yang Qing and others' sights became wider and wider. Until this time, everyone was amazed when they saw how far the ice blocks of the green pheasants covered. It's really terrifying. This ice actually extends directly to the next island. It's hard to imagine how huge this is. I'm afraid the ship is sailing very fast, and it will take half a day to cover such a long distance. Drizzt was shocked. Dao, deeply shocked by the power of Aokiji. Nature is really scary. Analu sneered. I use all my strength to cover the entire island and destroy this island. It's only a matter of moments. Everyone was amazed again, shocked by the terrifying attack range of the nature department. Yang Qing's eyes flashed, and he naturally understood why Qingji, such a terrible person, was not so strong during the battle. One is that the Chambord archipelago is a sensitive area, there are many nobles, civilians, and even Tianlong people, and the other is that his large-scale attacks may not be effective even when attacking a single target. In one respect, Yang Qing is targeting him. The same is true for Sakaski. The regionality greatly reduces the power he can exert. If he is in a no-man's land, the war between the two sides may even destroy an island in a very short time. Suddenly, Bucky shouted loudly. Ah, who is that? Shanks, it's Shanks. Bucky's shout alarmed Yang Qing and others, and everyone looked at the Chambord Islands, where Bucky was pointing. I saw there, a small ship slowly leaned against an uninhabited corner of the coast, just avoiding the battle at the moment. Shanks actually came to the Chambord Islands. Bucky said loudly in surprise. Look at their direction. It turned out to be towards the palace of the Tianlong people. What do these people want to do? Yang Qing's eyes flashed, and he understood in a blink of an eye. He exclaimed and said with admiration, "What a man who keeps his promises." Along the shore of Chambord, Shanks and his gang walked silently towards the Holy Land. Their whereabouts are secret, almost no one noticed. In the middle, they avoided countless sea soldiers, and soon they were outside the Holy Land. "Hey, boss, with Lucifer and the others pulling the navy, we're a lot easier," Beckman said with a smile. "That group of people is growing too fast," Yasop praised. "Let's go, get the wine, let's leave here. I don't want to face the old ghost carp," Shanks said seriously. Speaking of carp, everyone became serious, and then walked quickly towards the Holy Land in silence. Soon, everyone saw a large number of Marines densely scattered outside the Holy Land at this moment. Shanks strode forward, and the domineering look on his body exuded. As he advanced step by step, the Marines fell to the ground one after another. At this moment, the combat power of the Navy was gathered on the side of the Death God pirates, but the one here was easily solved by the Red Hare and others. Then, they quickly sneaked into the Holy Land, silently, without attracting anyone's attention. "I Nilu, attract their attention and let our friends reduce some risks." Yang Qing naturally knew the risk of sneaking into the Holy Land. He said to I Nilu without hesitation, "A harassing attack on the sea soldiers." "Understood." Anilu's eyes flashed. He glanced at Shanks and the others, and nodded. Then his right hand was raised, and the clouds of thunder began to gather in the sky, appearing above the Reaper. "They have to come for the last time, it's really troublesome," Qingzi said with a headache. He swears that this is the most difficult thing he has ever encountered. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. A difficult group of pirates, none of them. Sakazuki remained silent and took big strides. His body was constantly surging with high-temperature aura, and the magma rolled down, causing the ice cubes to emit white smoke. 3 seconds later, countless streamers rushed out from behind him, like red meteors, heading towards the sky above the Death God. Like Anilu's thunder and lightning properties, Akainu's magma is undoubtedly a terrifying natural fruit. They all have a strong aggressiveness and are feared by the world. These meteors rushed into the thundercloud, and immediately stirred the thundercloud to boil, and thunder and lightning flashed all over the sky. It turned the entire sky into an electromagnetically dense, eerie landscape with colorful rays of light constantly flashing. The people on the Reaper were in a hurry to avoid the lightning and flames falling overhead. In the Holy Land, the red-haired pirates saw the scene here and immediately smiled knowingly. "They're covering us, brothers, hurry up," Shanks said with a smile. Everyone agreed, and then followed Shanks into the Holy Land with great strides. On weekdays, Shanks would never do such risky things. He was a cautious person in his bones, and he acted after a plan. Such impulsive and risky things would definitely be rarely done. With the sensitive status of his 4 emperors, it is easy to start a war. But at this moment, he just did it, so willful, so ignorant of the consequences. Dragon, I've seen it. Chapter 144 Very good. Shanks and the others stepped into the Heavenly Dragon Holy Land. There were not many people in the group, and the commotion was not too great. Soon, they saw the Holy Land at the moment. "It's really a luxurious location," Yasop exclaimed. "The building complex in front of you is huge, like a castle. The seats stand on the ground, and the interior is splendid, and it really has everything. Servants are everywhere, the morning market street and the grocery market are also full of them, like a country." This is the Tianlongren Palace independent of the outside world, which shocked Shanks and others. They had never seen a more splendid, more spectacular building than here. "Go!" Shanks' eyes flashed and he stepped into it. A minute later, their arrival alarmed the celestial dragons, of course only on a small scale. Otherwise, who knows if there is any hidden terrifying power among the Tianlong people. Shanks was born cautious, the Death God pirates can come and go freely from here, but it does not mean that the Red Hair pirates can. As the four emperors, that kind of shocking power is not comparable to the Death God pirates. In today's sensitive period, the Navy and the World Court will never give up the opportunity to annihilate their entire gang. After all, if one of the four emperors can really be destroyed, it would be subversive for the entire world. The family of Tianlong people that Shanks came to is called the Lexter's family. The moment they saw the red-haired group again, the Lexter's family was shocked. After experiencing the shock of Yangqing and the two people just now, their hearts were greatly traumatized, and suddenly another person came, which immediately made the family panic. After seeing the identity of this group of people, they panicked. You are redheads. Lexter's panicked. There are countless grass and mud horses crushing his heart. Really beeping a dog, why do people like the four emperors come here so quietly, and why their goal is just him? Don't panic, we're just here to be guests. Shanks smiled, and the people behind him faintly surrounded everyone in the Lexter's family. What are you doing here? Lexter said fearfully. Is there a good bar? Shanks raised his eyebrows slightly, asked with a smile, and then casually warned everyone, don't act rashly, my partners are also very impulsive. Casualties are not a good thing for everyone. Quote. Speaking of casualties on both sides, it is estimated that once there is a real fluctuation, it must be them who are injured. This point, Lecudes naturally knew. He wiped the sweat on his forehead and waved towards the servant. Go and fetch the best wine in the warehouse. The servant was wearing a black suit and turned away in fear. Shanks nodded slightly, and Beckman followed closely. This action is extremely cautious, otherwise if one is wrong, the shock it will cause will be universal. Soon, Beckman followed the man out. Before the two of them arrived, the strong aroma of wine spread out, causing the noses of those present to tremble slightly. This is really good wine. Shanks' eyes lit up, and then he laughed. I decided to drink a little first, and then leave some for Lucifer and the others. Good wine, this is the fruit wine from the country of Noridus. A jar costs 10 million Baileys, which is very rare. It was given to us by the sea soldiers. Lecudes said nervously, then waved his hand, how can one jar be enough? 10 jars for the adults. Shanks' eyes flashed, and then he smiled, you are generous. Lecudes breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that this guy would not kill him, and a person would not have the idea that no one would dare to touch him when he lived to middle age. The one in front of him, with red hair, would probably only need a moment to kill him. Just a few jars of wine, how much is it worth? Keeping your name is the most important thing. Soon, 10 jars of good wine were packed with mysterious metal and sent to Shanks and others. Afterwards, everyone picked up these good wines and prepared to evacuate here. It's going well, Shanks said with a smile, and everyone laughed. Then, turned around and Shanks and others were ready to leave. Thank you then. Waved his hand, Shanks and the others quickly disappeared here. Lexter sighed heavily when he saw the red-haired group disappear. It's terrifying that this group of people sneaked into the Holy Land without a sound. What was their purpose? Looking at Shanks' back, Lexter thought solemnly. Boss, Shanks, they've got it, I've seen the packages on their backs. Back shouted from the bow. Okay, Yangqing's eyes lit up, and then smiled, let's go then, and if we keep on going, I'm afraid there will be a change. The Grim Reaper hummed, and then flew toward the higher sky. In just an instant, he escaped the attack range of Anilu and Sakaski, and then gradually turned into a shadow and disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Prepare to retreat. I'm afraid the price of this group has to be repositioned. Carp said with a big smile after biting into the donut. Old guy, this is a world-class criminal. Sakaski said with an ugly expression. Carp glanced at him, continued to smile, and Aokiji came over. Keep your tone calmer. A cold voice came out of Aokiji's mouth, obviously unhappy. Humph. Sakaski snorted coldly and turned to leave. Aokiji looked at Sakaski's back, his eyes twinkling. Then he followed Carp, out of here, towards the sea. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Headquarters to go. In a corner of the Chambord Islands, Shinx and Rayleigh sat together again. This time, they turned their backs to the tree and smiled. "Ha ha, Rayleigh, I didn't expect us to meet again so soon." Shinx laughed, opened the wine jar in front of him, and the strong aroma of wine was fragrant. "This is a good wine from the Holy Land. Have a taste." "You actually went there?" Rayleigh said in surprise. "Yeah, the wine there is really good." Shinx poured a small glass for the two of them. "I have to save it and drink it slowly. I can't give you too much." Riley smiled and shook his head. "You kid, you're so stingy." "Ha ha ha, cheers." The two raised their glasses, collided, and drank it. "How's that kid?" Shinx looked to the sky, vaguely as if he saw a ship, and also saw the lazy young man on the bow. Rayleigh narrowed his eyes, remembering the thrilling battle on the Chambord archipelago, and the shocking scene. He couldn't help but nodded. "Very good." Shinx was stunned for a moment, then burst out laughing. Chapter 145 New Hades. "I said it a long time ago, you will definitely recognize that kid when you see it." Shinx smiled very happily. The person he liked was also recognized by the seniors, which is a very happy thing. "And Luffy, that guy looks a lot like the captain. I have a hunch that when he goes to sea, there will also be a huge turmoil." "Then expect the kid you're talking about," Raleigh said with a smile, raising his glass. The Reaper pirates made a riot in the Chambord Islands, causing countless pirates to be captured by the Navy, and the whole world was shaken. But in the end, this big explosion was limited to certain areas, and there was no real publicity. Moreover, the most bizarre thing was that after this battle, the overall reward amount of the Death Pirates did not change much. The only change is the captain of the Death God Pirates. Death, Lucifer, the bounty is 580 million. In addition, other people who made a big splash in the Chambord Islands, such as Luo, such as Bucky, such as Glades, such as Anilu, such as Drizzt and others, actually kept the original bounty, not a shred of progress. This strange scene made countless people stunned, unable to understand the strangeness. Among the Holy Land, in the deepest palace. "Is this really good? We'll just pretend we didn't see it. Isn't it okay? Let him make a mess, only him, we don't need to care. Those Tianlong people who don't understand anything, die a few, it doesn't matter." Of the 5 old people, 3 of them spoke with a glance at me, and the other 2 were silently drinking tea, and they had no opinion on this. The 5 people are at the pinnacle of power, and it seems that they have acquiesced to everything Yangqing is sitting on. Because of their attitude, the attitude of the entire world court has become ambiguous. In a sense, the Death God Pirates were inexplicably protected. If another person made such a big mistake and turned the Holy Land upside down, I am afraid that the dead can no longer die. But Yangqing and others, nothing happened. This is the background, there are people on it, who dares to take them? Even the inside of the sea soldiers fell into a strange silence at this moment. Warring States clenched his fists and stared at the young man on the bounty, staring intently without saying a word. "The meeting is over, business as usual." In the end, he just sighed helplessly and said this. "The Wuhai plan, put it on the agenda immediately." The war subsided, and the world was at peace again. For the whole world, disputes on an island have little effect. Who dies? The world doesn't run as usual, doesn't it? After various layers of pressure, the terrible disaster that enveloped a large area in the Chambord Islands finally turned into a brief piece of news. A few days ago, in the Chambord Islands, the Death Pirates encountered a gang of sailors and fought a battle. The scene was very chaotic. A large number of sailors were dispatched, and many sailors were arrested in the chaos. Many sailors of the Death Pirates were injured and eventually absconded. The kidnapped Tianlong people were also successfully rescued by the Navy. Quote. Sitting on the boat, everyone in the Death God Pirates was stunned when they saw this brief news. "Talent!" exclaimed Bucky, "truly talent." Yangqing sat on the bow and laughed. "Avoiding the important and avoiding the weak, isn't this really the usual method of the imperial court to solve big problems? This is normal and understandable. Otherwise, how to write? Do you want those hard-working journalists and classmates to report the real situation? To some extent, this is a compromise between the death pirates and the dragons. The important ones are hidden by each other, and the others will be resolved naturally. In 3 days, we will arrive at the 7 waters. Before that, let's celebrate. Yang Qing said loudly, and then a banquet started again. In the Chambord Islands, the Redhead and others are also preparing to bid farewell to Rayleigh and head to the New World. This coding technology is the most reliable for you, Shanks exclaimed, and then they turned around and boarded the boat. Half an hour later, the Redhead and the others dived into the water and headed towards the New World. It came silently, and no one noticed when he left. 3 days later, Yang Qing and others came to the 7 waters. Mr. Espagu, how is our ship? Yang Qing asked with a smile as he pushed open the door of the city official's office. Espagu took off the glasses on the tip of his nose, then raised the newspaper in his hand and smiled. I read the newspaper and I knew you would be here today. It seems that you have done a big thing on this trip. Quote. Yang Qing shrugged, pulled over the chair, and sat on it spontaneously. The kidnapping of the celestial dragons and the final battle in the Chambord archipelago, tisk tisk tisk. Espagu said in admiration, I just saw this brief article and knew that you must have done something big. It's nothing, it's just a trip to the Holy Land. Yang Qing's eyes flashed and he said with a smile, causing Espagu's admiration to stop immediately, and his whole body was shocked. Seeing the latter's state, Yang Qing asked with a smile said, how is our new boat? Speaking of the new ship, Espagu just smiled. Very good, this is the most satisfying ship I have built myself. Whether it is the selection of materials, or his speed, or his attack power, they are all excellent. Espagu is very proud and confident. I have a hunch that this ship will surpass the one the teacher built for One Piece. Oh, Yang Qing asked suspiciously, is Mr. Espagu so confident? Hearing Yang Qing's question, Espagu narrowed his eyes, and then said solemnly, Mr. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. Yes, I have a blueprint for Hades in my hand. Huh. With such a weapon, no one can control himself not to learn and observe. From Hades, I learned a lot of ideas, either advanced or strange. I added my own understanding, and then designed your ship, the New Reaper. It can be said that he is the new Hades in the eyes of Espagu, possessing incredible power. And, I noticed that one of your companions can release lightning. Therefore, I added the concept of electromagnetism to diversify the power of this ship. Of course, the specific ingenuity and function, you will see later. Trust me, he must be a great new boat. Yang Qing's eyes lit up, then laughed, and said gratefully, then I would like to thank Mr. Espagu. I will remember your help deeply. If you need help in the future, please feel welcome. Espagu's eyes narrowed, and then he said softly, I am very satisfied with the promise of the God of Death. Chapter 146 Target New World. Yang Qing smiled and shook his head, then walked towards the shipyard under the leadership of Espagu. The two walked together, and after a while, they came to the shipyard. This is your new ship, how is it? Espagu led Yang Qing to the shipyard. Under the guidance of Espagu, Yang Qing looked in front of him. An incomparably huge ship stood in his eyes, which made him feel extraordinarily incredible. He saw that this new ship covers an area of 1,000 meters, and its height has reached 50 to 60 meters. Humans stand in front of it and are extremely small. If there is a real naval battle, this giant ship doesn't even need to fire artillery shells. As long as it rampages, it can turn the hostile ships into powder. What is even more terrifying is that his hull is full of countless dense gun holes, and the dark gun barrels are faintly visible, shining with a dark light. At the bow of the ship, a huge statue was erected there, holding a long sickle in his hand, wearing a black robe, with only 2 pairs of pupils exposed under the wide robe, looking gloomy and mysterious. This is Ms. Moria's suggestion, and she also designed the statue. Esbagu said. Yang Qing nodded, his eyes flickering slightly. This statue is exactly the black robe they wore after they went to sea for the first time. In order to hide their child's identity, Moria actually made him the symbol of the new ship. The pitch-black statue stands at the bow of the ship, adding a suffocating and mysterious atmosphere to the whole ship, which is daunting. In addition, at the center of the entire ship, a long minaret is located on it, exuding a strange feeling. This is an electrical power transmission device. As long as the electrical energy is stored in it, the whole ship will have a steady stream of kinetic energy. Esbagu pointed to the introduction. Yang Qing's eyes flashed, thinking of Anilu. At this point, this device is more like Noah's Ark designed by Enlil in the original book. On both sides of the ship, there are also countless pulps. Conventional power, propelled by steam, works on the same principles as sea trains. Yes, this ship is very unique. Yang Qing nodded, very satisfied. As Esbagu said, this ship is indeed more advanced than the current technological means in the pirate world, and it is very outstanding. Of course, further familiarity can only be done after boarding the ship. When can we set sail? Yang Qing asked. Any time, Esbagu replied. Yang Qing's eyes moved, and then he said directly, then I'll trouble you to drive the ship directly to the port. For details, please leave it to Drizzt. Esbagu nodded, expressing his understanding, and then he stepped onto the huge ship, and Yang Qing called Drizzt over. The latter is wandering around, hooking up with the nice salespeople in the shipyard. Hearing Yang Qing's call, he immediately ran over. Boss, what do you want me to do? Drizzt asked with a smile. Follow Mr. Esbagu and learn to control our new ship. Yang Qing said with a smile, you are a navigator. If you can't figure out our new ship, that's not a good thing. Drizzt was stunned for a moment, then looked at the new Reaper. His eyes immediately lit up. This is our new ship, wow, it's so big. It's probably bigger than Whitebeard's ship. It's too big. Great. Bucky also ran over at the moment and pulled Glades. Wow, this is our new boat. It's amazing, I've never seen such a great boat. Glades, come and see ah. All the Death God pirates were alarmed, and Luo and Corazon also came over. When the people in the shipyard saw all the Death God pirates come over, they couldn't help but feel fear in their hearts. This is the world-famous pirate group, and if you talk about its reputation, it can shock a large number of pirates. Come with me, boys, let's take a look at your new ship. Esbagu shouted, Drizzt and the others immediately followed, and Yang Qing also smiled and followed. This huge ship contains countless complex systems, and he is really worried that Drizzt will not understand. After getting on the ship, I saw Drizzt quickly grasp the situation of the whole ship, and then started the ship, when a cloud of black smoke came out of the chimney. The new Death God roared with a hum, and moved slowly. Not bad, really good, this ship is great. Drizzt exclaimed, following behind Esbagu, a careful learner, nodding constantly, explaining every point of it firmly remember. Crackling. Anilu turned into a bolt of lightning and landed on the ship. His indifferent expression and high aura attracted the attention of the surrounding staff. That's Anilu, Thunder Anilu, it's really scary. The sailor on the boat whispered in fear. Anilu raised his mouth slightly, ignored it, and spontaneously walked to the seat specially designed for him. When he saw the simple seat, his face wrinkled. It's ugly. A single, ugly chair was completely out of tune with his aesthetic. Extending his palm, he asked Bucky to find some gold metal, and then a hot thunderbolt emanated. Lay metallurgy. In less than a minute, a beautiful platform appeared. The complex thunder pattern was engraved on the platform. It was as complex as a circuit. It had a mysterious beauty and could conduct electricity more easily and effectively. Above the platform, a large chair appeared, all carved into a perfect statue, flanked by dragon heads. Like the Emperor's dragon chair, it is noble and elegant. It's much better this way. Anilu nodded in satisfaction, then sat up. Slowly, he transported the lightning in his body, and the countless descending waves under the whole ship. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Start stirring. With a bang, the boat moved and quickly rowed outside. Esbagu was stunned by Analu's actions. After a long while, he said, "This guy is too smart. He even improved my circuit by himself." Yang Qing laughed. The ship was obviously better after the renovation of Aini Road. 3 hours later, the entire Death God pirates parted with Esbagu and the others at the pier. "Goodbye everyone," Bucky shouted, and the people in the port waved goodbye to the Death Pirates. "Let's go, Drizzt," Yang Qing shouted loudly, sitting on top of the tall statue of Death on the bow. "Okay," Drizzt shouted, and the Reaper roared and set sail. The huge skull flag swayed recklessly under the blowing of the sea breeze, flamboyant and domineering. Along the way, countless pirate groups, when they saw this magnificent pirate ship and saw the pirate flag with a sickle, all looked terrified and fled. "Let's go to Fishman Island. This time, our destination is the New World." Chapter 147 Above the blue sea, the sea breeze blew gently, brushing the ends of people's hair. On the incomparably wide sea, countless fish jumped up their beautiful bodies, and then plunged into the sea, making a pop sound. In the second half of the Great Passage, near the Chambord Islands, many ships sail here. Located in the most prosperous area, there are countless pirates and nobles gathered here, and they are monitored by marines, and large-scale incidents rarely occur. An incomparably huge ship was riding the wind and waves, setting off countless waves and sailing towards this place. On the sea, after seeing this behemoth, countless ships quickly avoided the road in horror. "So, what is that? What a big ship. It's comparable to 5 of us. Look, that pirate flag, a sickle and a skeleton. This is the Death God Pirates. That is the ship of the Death God Pirates." Countless people were shocked and looked at the ship in horror. If it was said that the most vicious big pirate group was the last time, I am afraid that the whole world would point to the Death Pirate group. There are more than 3 big pirates with a bounty of more than 400 million. The other crew members are all powerful pirates with more than 100 million. This pirate ship can be said to have gathered a group of terrible guys. Some people even compared them to the 4 emperors. I think this is a pirate group that can gain a huge territory and receive a lot of goods as soon as it enters the New World, becoming a huge pirate group force. At the same time, this is the only way to enter the legendary treasure. Countless large or small pirate groups, dark forces, hide here. The 4 emperors frightened the heroes, obtained the possession of countless islands, and planted these islands with their own flags. For the Death God Pirates, it is certain that once they enter the New World, there will inevitably be a huge wave. Their movements will attract the attention of the whole world. In fact, at this moment, their every move is already under the eyes of many people. On the Reaper, the top of the bow sculpture, Yang Qing sat here cross-legged, scanning the sea in front of him lazily. There was a blank space there. Many ships gave way out of fear of their name, and the Death God Pirates were already at their peak. At this moment, a medium-sized pirate group suddenly approached and stopped directly in front of the Death God. It caused the exclamations of countless people. In front of the huge Reaper, this pirate ship didn't even use the people on the Reaper, and it was immediately crushed into pieces. Crack, woo! Countless gun barrels emerged from the bow of the Reaper, and then all aimed at the medium-sized pirate group. "Hey, someone dares to block our way and watch me blast you into scum." Bucky laughed and controlled the cannon at the bow, very happy. "This is my Bucky's special cannonball." And the countless other pirate groups who watched the battle were also shocked by this pirate group. That's right, that's the Longbottom Pirates. Captain Longbottom has a bounty of 280 million, and he is also one of the supernovas this time. Their vice captain, Erdish, is also a big pirate with a bounty of 200 million. A medium-sized ship, with a total of 53 pirates on board. What are they going to do? Yang Qing listened to the comments and exclamations of these people, and his domineering arrogance improved a lot after a big battle. At this point, it has already been accomplished. Longbottom Pirates. The huge reaper slowly stopped in front of the medium-sized ship, and Yang Qing slowly stood up. His slender figure is not tall, but the moment he stood up, there was a huge pressure in the air. Suddenly, it seemed that even the space became sticky. Enter the Longbottom Pirates. Captain Longbottom was instantly covered with fine sweat, and the huge pressure directly enveloped his heart. He felt the heavy pressure on the man, and even saw his own pirate ship. Some people couldn't bear the pressure, and one by one, they fell to the ground with a poof, poof. Captain, what are you going to say? Hurry up, the pressure is too much. Erdish trembled. The two ships were very close, and the pressure was extremely dignified. Why are you standing in front of me? Yang Qing's words were passed down again, this time with even greater aura. On the Longbottom pirate ship, the wooden armor wall cracked constantly, and there were actually small cracks. The pirate ship is about to break. Countless pirates exclaimed, and Longbottom fell into a panic. Don't get me wrong, Longbottom's whole body became weak. In front of such a big pirate, his whole body was shaking and he shouted, "Don't get me wrong. We are here to rely on you." Buzz. Yang Qing's eyes narrowed, and the overlord color in the air became heavier, directly pressing all the members of the Longbottom pirates to their knees. Join us. Yang Qing raised his eyebrows slightly. You mean, you want to join my Death God pirates? Yes, we are going to join the Reaper pirates. Longbottom shouted loudly. All of the Death God pirates appeared at the bow of the ship at this moment. He looked at the Longbottom pirates with a weird smile on his face. Wow, it's all the Death pirates, they all came out. I like Anilu, he is so cold, handsome, and tall. There were stars in the eyes of a woman who looked at Anilu admiringly. Anilu's eyes trembled, and she looked at the place where the sound was made, causing the woman to scream immediately. Ah, he looked at me. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. He looked at me, male god, my male god. Anilu's face trembled, a little embarrassed, and turned around and ignored them. I like Drizzt. The scene where he throws the cards is so handsome. A man shouted, holding Drizzy's reward in his hand. Drizzy's face darkened and he lowered his head. For Mao, it's a man who likes Lao Tzu. Others are more or less admirers, and it is a strange feeling to be seen by countless people at this moment. There were also Marines hiding in the dark, quietly observing the Death God pirates, but not acting rashly. This kind of pirate gang is no longer a sudden encounter, and it can be easily solved. It must have a perfect strategy and preparation. Yang Qing was too lazy to pay attention to this boat, and his eyes narrowed and continued to look at the Longbottom pirates. Chapter 148 Wuhai Candidates. Join us. Yes. Ditch your ships and unload your pirate flags. Then, put the mark of my death pirates on your body. The Longbottom pirates were all shocked, and then a smile appeared on their faces. They laughed and boarded the Death God pirate ship. No one in Longbottom would be unwilling to join the world-famous Death God pirates. They originally came for this purpose. As soon as Yang Qing said this, the crew members immediately became excited one by one. On the other hand, those who watched the play around were surprised. The Longbottom pirates actually joined the Death pirates, which can be said to be a big news. On the Reaper pirates immediately increased the number to around 60 due to the addition of the Longbottoms. The huge Reaper, because of the influx of more than 50 people, did not appear to be too crowded. Go! A quarter of an hour later, with Drizzy's shout, the Reaper let out a long roar, cut through the waves again, and headed towards Fishman Island. Marine Headquarters. I got the news that the Death God pirates passed through the Chambord Islands half an hour ago, and they were heading towards Fishman Island. A young man's words came out of Sengoku's ear. His eyes narrowed slightly, Warring States sighed, and then he glanced at everyone on the scene. The Wuhai plan must be put on the agenda now. Do you have a good candidate? He felt the pressure. The four emperors of the New World, the number of pirates in the first half of the Great Waterway continued to increase, and the navy was gradually in a weak state. will not be better. The Wuhai plan is a long process. If you want to truly complete this plan, I am afraid it will take 4 or 5 years. A lieutenant general said solemnly. So, we are going to start now. Warring States Road, are there any good candidates? The seamen in the audience were silent for a while, thinking about each other, and after a long time said, we can start with the pirate with a high bounty at the moment, or a pirate with a great reputation. The conditions for Wuhai's selection are that he has a certain strength, and the second is yes, he must be able to intimidate other pirates. Warring States nodded and motioned for the sailor to continue. If I start from here, I have a few good candidates in my heart. The young sailor was encouraged and said loudly. Go on. First, Hancock, the king and queen of the daughter country, the woman who holds the domineering and armed domineering. Her own strength is very good, and as the king of a country, she is even more powerful to the pirates. The effect of shock and deterrence. Of course, the most important thing is that the daughter country itself is not bad, and its attitude towards our navy has always been ambiguous. It is a goal that can be won. The sea soldiers present nodded slightly, all of them felt that there was some truth. Second, the seaman of Fishman Island is Jinping. In a sense, he represents Fishman Island and can ease the relationship with the sea soldiers. At this point, the Whitebeard pirates have taken a step ahead of us. He is also a target to strive for. Quote. The third place, Hawkeye Mahawk, the world's #1 swordsman, can be said to be the pirate who is the least like a pirate. His strength is our priority. Secondly, Crocodile, Moria, and the 3 pirates of Tyrant Bear are all competent enough. Warring States nodded, his eyes flickered, and he fell into contemplation. The few people mentioned by the sea soldiers, except for the first few who have a certain interest in entanglement, the rest are pure pirates, and they are outstanding pirates, with strong strength, they can form a shock to other pirates. Are there any candidates? Warring States asked again. He was taking suggestions, and then he screened them according to the actual situation. In the end, there are still 2 candidates. The young general's eyes flashed and he said with a smile. Which 2? Warring States Road. If it's not necessary, naval soldiers should not include these 2 people in Wuhai's category. Their identities are sensitive and they are both extremely brutal guys. Don't give a shit, talk about it. Warring States said solemnly. Yes, Marshal. The young general took his face, and then said loudly, first, the young master of the Don Quixote family, Flamingo, Da Flamingo, his pirate group is undoubtedly one of the strongest. Buddy, they have entered the New World a few days ago, but their nature is cruel, extremely ferocious, and they are real sea dregs. Compared with other pirates, they are considered real villains, so they will not be considered. Quote. The second one is the Shinigami pirates that have been in the limelight recently. All the Marines here looked at him, and even the 3 generals stared at him with a twinkle in their eyes. There is no doubt that everyone here has a considerable prejudice against this pirate group. Said the Navy with a smile, however, it is undeniable that the Death God group, their strength is the same as the above mentioned. The other 7 have huge differences. Quote. They're more powerful and shocking, that's quite the case. Not long ago, even a pirate group proposed to surrender to them, and the person who surrendered was also a supernova, Longbottom, a person with temperature fruit ability. His ability is also very powerful, although not as good as natural, but there are similarities in the same way. Quote. This is nothing, it does not prove that this pirate group has unimaginable potential and deterrent power. The young general's tone was very serious and deep, which made everyone present think deeply. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Sengoku even blinked and began to think about it. Indeed, the power of the Death God pirates is well known. In this encounter on the Chambord archipelago, they even showed that they were not weaker than the generals. At this point, in a sense, they even have the prototype of the 4 emperors. In the end, the Warring States slammed the table and said solemnly, don't think about them, Aoki, Sakazuki, you go to contact the king of the daughter country first, and tell them that the sea soldiers can agree to some conditions for them to join Wuhai, among which the specific details are at your discretion. Quote. Yes. Aokiji and Sikarsky got up and nodded. Kazuna, you are in charge of Jinping on Fishman Island. His identity is also very sensitive. I am still very confident in his participation. Warring States nodded. The latter tilted his head and sighed. It's really exhausting. My injury just healed. Cap, Hawkeye, you are in charge. Warring States rode. Karp took a bite of the donut and agreed vaguely. As for the others, I'll think about it again and proceed. Let's go. Chapter 149 Fusion. On the Reaper, everyone is celebrating the joining of the Longbottom Pirates. Welcome to join, Longbottom Brothers. No, you will be a member of my Death Pirates from now on. Bucky laughed loudly. The crew of the Longbottom Pirates looked at Bucky with admiration, eyes full of little stars. Although there are not many people in this boat, to them, they are all legendary characters. It's Bucky the Destruction King, he's talking to us. Ah, it feels like a dream. It's true, we really joined the Grim Reaper Pirates. Some crew members burst into tears and couldn't help themselves with excitement. The whole boat was filled with lively singing. The huge Reaper, moored on the sea, did not drive. They are not afraid of being rounded up by Marines. At this time, it is probably difficult to capture the trace of the Reaper. There are so many people at once, how many meals do I have to cook? Glades had a black line on his face. He strode over, and then shouted, any one of you who will kill the kitchen, get out of here immediately. Otherwise, there will be no food to eat. The crew immediately boiled and looked at Glades. It's Chef Glades, the great pirate Glades. I'll go, I'll cut vegetables, I've been a cook for a while. I am going too. And me, it's such an honor to work under Glades. In an instant, 5 or 6 people got up and ran towards Glades. I'm the captain of the first team of the Death God Pirates. Who wants to mess with me? Bucky took out the 5 jars of wine, and with a wave of his right hand, the ability to smash the lid of the jar and spread the fragrance. The crew looked at each other and immediately became excited. In an instant, 30 people followed behind Bucky, making Bucky laugh. Ha ha ha, I also have people under my command, you will call me Captain in the future. Captain Bucky, ha ha ha. The members of the first team immediately shouted loudly, Captain Bucky. Bucky grinned, his whole body shaking. Yang Qing stepped over and approached Longbottom. You are welcome, Longbottom. He glanced at Erdish, then added, Erdish. Captain. Longbottom and Erdish said excitedly. I'll be a brother in the future, so I don't need to say so much. Yang Qing waved. Bucky robbed your crew, don't mind. I'll be brothers in the same boat from now on, I won't mind. Longbottom said quickly. Ha ha ha, okay, we'll be brothers from now on. Yang Qing sat down cross-legged, stretched out his hand, and grabbed it suddenly. A jar of wine beside Bucky was grabbed, and he grabbed again towards the warehouse. In front of people, when the right hand trembled, the wine in the jar automatically floated out and flowed into the bowl. Seeing this scene, Longbottom and Erdish were stunned, almost like the means of God. Come on, drink, this bowl of wine is a brother. Yang Qing said with a smile, raised the bowl as a gesture, and drank it all. Longbottom and Erdish were so excited that they were almost speechless, and drank the wine in their bowls without hesitation. When Glades comes out, we will celebrate. After the celebration, we will go to the New World. Longbottom and Erdish nodded, and they were all in a dazed state at the moment. Like an illusion, he joined the Death God Pirates and looked around. The atmosphere was full of enthusiasm. Look, this card is an ace, right? Drizzt took out a card and showed it to the 5 crew members, who nodded. Then, with his hands, the cards flashed a red light and turned into Xiao Wang. The crew watching was stunned, shouting cheating, and Drizzt laughed. An hour later, the large plates began to be delivered one by one, and 10 jars of wine were brought up in a row. In an instant, the atmosphere on the ship became lively. The crew began to sing, and it became more lively when there were more people. After a night, the Reaper ushered in a sunny day. This ship is too big, I'm afraid the coating won't work well. Drizzt frowned, giving him a headache. Moreover, if the ship is large, there are many variables in the sea. If there are some huge ravines, it is easy for them to die. Dead. Don't worry, we will have the crew before we will coat it, and it will be completed in about an afternoon. Longbottom said with a smile at this time. Drizzt was stunned for a moment, then smiled. That's good. This way we can go down to the depths of the sea. I'm very curious about what the Fishman Island looks like. Leave it to us. Longbottom gave a thumbs up, then summoned the crew with Erdish. Yongqing sat cross-legged on the bow of the boat. Next to him, Anilu bit the apple. Both of them said nothing, one with a relaxed face and the other with a gloomy face. The black aura that appeared on Dylan's fist that day. Anilu asked after eating an apple. The armed color is domineering and can let you touch the elemental body of the natural fruit. Yongqing said with a smile. I want to learn, Ernie said. Yes, but you are still a little bit short. Yongqing raised his eyebrows and smiled. Anilu stood up with a dissatisfied expression on his face. I was almost. Yes, exercise your physical skills and hone your system, otherwise, it will be difficult for you to control the armed color. Yongqing said seriously. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. When you meet the conditions, I will naturally teach you. Anilu snorted coldly and turned around. At this moment, not everyone on the Death God Pirates is qualified to control the armed color. There were only a few people, including himself, Dylan's, Drizzt, and Corazon. To his surprise, Baki himself met the standard, as well as Glades. On the whole ship, only the 6 of them can control the armed colors. Yongqing instructed Dylan's to secretly hand over the cultivation method of armed color to these people, so that they can improve their strength. In addition to the armed color, there are more people who have seen and heard the color. For example, Anilu, Dylan's, and Glades also awakened yesterday. Moria also took control of the sensuality, which surprised everyone. In addition, Luo also possessed the arrogance of the sensuality. I believe that with the passage of time, the strength of the entire ship will usher in a leap. In the afternoon, Longbottom wiped the sweat from his forehead and let out a long breath. Finally done. On the surface of the Reaper, a layer of flashing colorful colors began to appear, like the color of foam. This is the coating. In one afternoon, Longbottom and the others actually completed such a large scale. Awesome, Longbottom, this can be done. Bucky yelled from the side. Haha, Longbottom is the fruit of temperature. With some special methods, it can be done easily. Erdish said with a smile. We can finally go to the new world. Longbottom sighed long, his eyes full of complexity. Chapter 150 Fishman Island. Drizzt is in charge of the sailing. The Reaper was driving on the sea, and after half an hour, it began to dive downward. A boat of people watched this scene curiously. They are all people who have not experienced such steps. Fishman Island is also a strange place to them. If you want to go to Fishman Island, you must rely on a fixed current route. Drizzt turned the rudder left and right, and the Reaper roamed flexibly on the seabed. Yongqing sat on the bow of the boat and saw that the large tracts of fish in front were panicked and quickly dispersed. All kinds of fish of different sizes and colors, let everyone know a lot. Some of these fish are like cylinders, some are like a ball, some are gun-shaped, and some are even flocculent. This is a fish in the depths of the sea floor, which cannot be seen at all on land. Look, that fish is huge. Bucky yelled. Everyone saw that a whale that was twice the size of the Reaper stared at Mumu, passing by the Reaper. It also ignored the huge Reaper and quickly passed the crowd. Look there, that fish is blowing bubbles. Luo also said in surprise. Everyone looked again and saw a strange, diamond-shaped fish that was constantly blowing bubbles, and the bubbles were of different colors, gorgeous and very interesting. It's amazing, the bottom of the sea is awesome. I'm already looking forward to what the legendary mermaid will look like. Glades said longingly, while Longbottom and Erdish were lying on the bow, with faces full of faces. Laugh and look at everything under the sea. It only takes 2 hours to reach Fishman Island, and it's very fast along the current. Drizzt easily controlled the Reaper. Countless wood pulp under the boat swayed gently, driving the entire boat to sail. Everything in the sea seemed very quiet, and there were countless creatures. Most of them trembled when they saw such a huge monster as the Reaper, and then fled away in panic. Half an hour later, Drizzt suddenly raised his eyebrows, looked ahead and said, "I knew I would encounter this scene, I am really helpless." He looked at Yang Qing. "Captain, boss, the death god will not pass." Yang Qing's eyes also looked like the front. Going down the ocean current, he saw a small ravine. Other small and medium-sized ships could easily pass through it. "It's stuck. Bucky, it's over to you," gently said towards Bucky, who jumped to the bow. "Look at me, handle this, I'm the best fit." The members of the first team twisted all over. The great Captain Bucky, we're about to do it. It's great, I can witness Captain Bucky make a move with my own eyes." Yang Qing smiled helplessly and shook his head, "These live treasures." Everyone saw that Bucky quickly stepped forward, and then stretched his hand forward, and a strange force began to brew. The Reaper followed the current, getting closer and closer to the narrow ravine. 10 meters, 5 meters, 3 meters. Fractured. Boom. The gully in front suddenly collapsed, and countless dust mixed with the sea water wandered, drowning the Reaper in a blink of an eye. At this moment, a dull voice came out. "Zero freeze." Crack. The sea water around the Reaper was suddenly frozen into ice cubes, and countless dusts were frozen together. Before the turbid seawater could cover the Reaper, it was frozen into ice cubes. Longbottom. Yang Qing's eyes flashed, and a smile appeared on his face. The power of this guy is really not small. The Reaper quickly passed through the ravine, and everything around it became clear again. Then there was a rumbling sound. When everyone saw the area that was frozen by Longbottom, it suddenly collapsed, and the ice cubes quickly melted. The pressure on the ocean floor is too high, and my ice cubes won't last long," Longbottom said embarrassingly, wiping the back of his head. "Ha ha ha, not bad, Longbottom, you are very strong, you can freeze the sea, just like the green pheasant." Bucky laughed and patted Longbottom on the shoulder. Luo and others also looked at Longbottom in amazement. Such an ability is indeed powerful. "I am the fruit of temperature, which can freeze and burn, but if there is no medium, it is useless." Longbottom laughed. "Excellent ability," Moria chuckled. "In the future, Glades won't have to worry about lighting a fire. Even in summer, our boat will be cooler." Longbottom was stunned for a moment, with a bitter expression on his face. An hour later, the Reaper approached Fishman Island. Everyone stood on the boat and could clearly see the huge island in front. The periphery was like a coating. It was a huge bubble with an air layer in the middle, and there was a huge island inside. "Wow wow wow, it's really a murloc, it's so beautiful." Drizzy's eyes lit up, and the others looked at the island with a novel look. But on the contrary, the people of Fishman Island were stunned for a moment, and then the expressions on their faces became panic at a speed visible to the naked eye, and some people even sat on the ground. From the island, they clearly saw the incomparably huge ship, especially the flying sickle pirate flag at the top, which made them even more terrified. At this moment, even the king's guards stationed in the passage were terrified one by one. The god of death pirates, it's them. They've come to Fishman Island, tell the king. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. Quick, tell the king, the whole island is on alert. This is the world-famous pirate. Fishman Island was in a panic, and the news immediately reached the palace. Neptune's expression changed, and he hurriedly walked here with Ottoji. When the Reaper stopped firmly at the port of Fishman Island, Neptune also came here with a large number of people. "What's the situation? So many people welcome us." Drizzt was a little stunned. Hee, Drizzt, you forgot our current influence." Robin snickered. "In terms of the reputation of our death pirates, it is a shock to Fishman Island." Drizzt came to a sudden realization and understood. Everyone went to the bow of the boat, and then looked down at the fish people below. The port was not open to them, but the people on the island were vigilant, staring at them, full of tension and seriousness. The Death God Pirates. Fishman Island is sheltered by the Whitebeard Pirates. What are you doing here? Please let me know in advance. Neptune shouted loudly. Sitting cross-legged on the dark statue of death, Yang Qing glanced lazily at the fish people below. The crew came over one by one and all appeared in the bow position. Whenever a crew member appeared, the fish people below swallowed their saliva and became more and more afraid. Chapter 151 Alliance. Neptune's voice was very loud, echoing in the air, and entering the ears of the Death God Pirates. A total of more than 60 crew members of the Death God Pirates were all lying on the bow of the boat, leaning their necks and looking down. These people put a lot of pressure on Fishman Island, making the atmosphere of the scene a little heavy. On the side of the Death God Pirates, no one spoke. This scene of not receiving a response made countless people take a breath and were extremely nervous. They couldn't imagine what kind of situation it would be like if the Death God Pirates were to attack Fishman Island. It's just borrowing the way, don't worry. After a long time, Yang Qing smiled and said softly. This sentence, like a strike token, made everyone present breathe a sigh of relief. Neptune and Princess Otoki were even more relieved, especially Otahime, who could clearly see the beads of sweat on her husband's forehead. At the moment of facing the Death God Pirates, he suffered an unimaginable amount of pressure. Please open your passage, the boat needs to dock. Yang Qing spoke again, and the voice spread throughout the scene. After Neptune breathed a sigh of relief, he said loudly, open the passage and welcome the Death God Pirates to Fishman Island. The king's army immediately complied, and even at this moment, the hearts of countless people were still raised, cautiously and solemnly staring at the Death God Pirates. But when they saw the huge pirate ship of the Shinigami, slowly driving in, and docked firmly on the shore, everyone really relaxed. It seems that they really have no hostility. Yang Qing and the others stepped off the ship one by one, leaving only Drizzt and 10 crew members to guard the Reaper. King Neptune. Yang Qing walked towards Neptune and greeted with a smile. Your Excellency Lucifer. It was a lot of pressure for Neptune to face this guy with a bounty of nearly 600 million. This is Princess Yiji, right? Yang Qing looked at Yiji next to Neptune. I agree with your idea, but the means are somewhat lacking. Yiji's eyes lit up, she nodded, and said nothing. On this occasion, it must be really inconvenient to discuss anything. This king invites your Excellency Lucifer to the palace. Neptune saw that Yang Qing was not so difficult to speak, but looked very approachable, and immediately invited him out loud. Yang Qing was stunned for a moment, then nodded and smiled, then I will disturb you. He did have something to discuss with Neptune. Afterwards, Yang Qing followed Neptune towards the palace. The other crew members on the Reaper were scattered. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared, and they parted ways with Yang Qing. Almost every time they go to an island, these people move freely, and this time on Fishman Island is no exception. On the Reaper, the 10 crew members who stayed behind were wandering around boredly. They saw that other pirate groups had also entered here, but they were not as eye-catching as the Reaper. There are so many ships entering the new world. The crew sighed, I don't know what will happen in the future. Don't worry. Our captain is a strong man who can fight against the generals, not to mention, there are also Enelu, Deputy Captain Dillons, and Captain Bucky, as well as Longbottom, Erdish, our bosses, but they are all very trustworthy and strong. Quote. That's right, they may be very difficult, but I believe that once our Death God Pirates enter the new world, they will surely become a rare powerful force in the world. Drizzt lay on the deck, rolled over, and slept beautifully. Soon, Yang Qing followed Neptune to the palace. In the Sea God Palace, Yang Qing and King Neptune gestured to each other, and the two drank the wine in the cup. I passed by Fishman Island today, thank the king for his invitation. Yang Qing said with a smile. Your Excellency Lucifer, it is our honor to be famous. Princess Yiji was tall and said with a smile. Yang Qing shook his head and carefully observed this Princess Agi. At the beginning of the plot in the original work, this Princess Otoji had already died. He didn't expect to meet him today, which surprised him. In the original work, there are not many people that Yang Qing admires, and this Princess Agi is one of them. Strive to promote the friendly coexistence of mermaids and human beings. The behavior of this Princess Otoji is just like in some European and American countries in her previous life. She advocated the equal status of blacks and whites. This is a cross-century philosophy, and she is undoubtedly a pacifist. War will always bring only destruction, and peace will allow mankind to coexist. There is no doubt that Princess Otoji thought so, and there was also a mermaid who advocated war among the Murlocs, but he just died. In the final development, Princess Otoji died in the assassination of Hadi Jones, which has to be said to be a tragedy. I also respect the concept of Princess Agi, Yang Qing said with a smile. Oh, Princess Otoji's eyes lit up. Your Excellency Lucifer, also think that humans and mermen should live in peace. Princess Agi smiled very happily, and Nipton also had a great sense of identification with Yang Qing at this moment. Yang Qing also raised the cup seriously, and the two drank together. In the future, the Death God pirates will also need the help of Fishman Island, please don't refuse. Yang Qing also said with a smile. Neptune nodded earnestly, and just like that, the two sides completed their first simple alliance. Not only because of the common concept, but also because of the powerful strength of the two parties, both of which can help each other. Yang Qing came here naturally to gain the support of Fishman Island. The pirates have arrived in the New World, and if they want to truly have the qualifications for hegemony, the number of people, the strong, the strength, and the financial power are all necessary. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The competition in the later stage is not just a competition of power. The influence of the four emperors is not only because of their power. Power, one is power, the other is power, both are indispensable. Chapter 152 Trouble. In the Poseidon Palace, Yang Qing got along very well with King Neptune and Princess Otoji. A group of ministers also toasted Yang Qingju one after another, and the scene became lively for a while. Between the gongs and chips, Yang Qing's thinking is very clear. The Death God pirates will definitely need a lot of crew members in the future. I hope His Majesty Neptune can do me a favor. Yang Qing said with a smile. Your Excellency Lucifer, please speak, said Neptune. I hope to recruit some crew members on Fishman Island. Yang Qing smiled. As soon as he said these words, it shocked the ministers in the entire palace, and King Neptune was startled. Then Princess Otoji's eyes flashed incredulous, and she asked loudly, are you trying to recruit Murlocs as your crew? Yes, I hope to recruit on a large scale, probably around 50 people. Yang Qing said with a smile. 50 Murloc pirates are indeed quite a large number. You must know that the average small pirate group is about 10 people. For King Neptune and Otahime, it was even more unimaginable. I actually want to recruit mermaids as crew members. Otoji was a little excited. She could see clearly that Yang Qing did this, on the one hand, to strengthen the power of her own pirate group, on the other hand, it was for her philosophy. What? She is very clear, that kind of impact, influence, unparalleled. Even Whitebeard didn't really include the mermaid in his pirate group. But the pirate in front of him, he has to do it. Yes, of course. King Neptune said excitedly, I will immediately issue an order to summon all the mermaids in the country who are willing to join the Death God pirates, and I will never stop them. Then thank the king and princess. Yang Qing said with a smile. On Fishman Island, the members of the Death God pirates were scattered everywhere. Bucky and Glades ran around excitedly. They saw the mermaid on the street, full of curiosity and excitement. Look at Glades, that merman is so pretty. Bucky shouted. Let's go and see. Glades, faces full of black lines, can't you see the strange eyes that the mermaids all over the street look at us? It's like seeing a neuropathy, okay. Mermaids are really a peculiar race. When they reach a certain age, they will turn their tails into two legs, just like humans. Glades said in admiration. A child in front of him looked at the two with some fear. Bucky squatted down, first with a cold face. Boy, you're blocking my way, are you courting death? His fierce aura immediately frightened the child and the adults around him. 3 seconds later, Bucky's face changed drastically, turning into a big smile. Ha ha ha, I lied to you. Immediately after, Bucky picked up the child and made a circle in the air. The child also realized something at this time, thought it was very funny, and laughed, and the surrounding mermaids also smiled. The boss estimates that it will take a while, and we also have to stay on Fishman Island for some time. Dylan's, Ernie Road, Luo, and Corazon walked slowly on the street. I always feel that the captain is going to do something again. Luo said strangely. What will he do? Corazon asked curiously. Analu didn't say a word, bit the apple in his mouth fiercely, and he couldn't cultivate the domineering look of armament, which made him sullen all the time. I think he will recruit mermaids into our pirate group. Dylan's thought for a while and guessed. Recruit mermaids. Corazon was surprised. No pirate group in this world has ever done this before. Dylan's rolled his eyes. With his temperament, he might just do it. The four of them were bored and scattered on the streets of Fishman Island, but they were not at all curious about the mermaids. However, it would be interesting if it was really done, wouldn't it? Luo smiled. Dylan's and Corazon both laughed after thinking about it. Yes, it's quite interesting. The two women, Mariah and Robin, were very curious about everything about Fishman Island. They appear to be in high spirits, having a good time anywhere, with the crew behind them as candidates to protect them. Maria and Robin are really goddesses. The crew members in the rear talked with each other, full of admiration and awe. When they first entered Fishman Island, the Death God pirates showed kindness to the entire island and did not cause any disturbance. At the port, there was a dispute at this moment. A team of pirates quickly ran out of the port carrying a cloth bag. Come on, this is the only one we have gained this time. We will make more money when we go back. This one is enough for us to live for a long time. The gloomy low middle-aged man shouted in a low voice. A group of more than a dozen people quickly ran down the street. Just then, a scream came out. Ah, help, my child, was taken away by them. A female voice immediately spread across the street. The faces of the dozen or so men running changed, and they sped up their movements in horror. It was actually discovered, and now it's troublesome. The sudden female voice changed the atmosphere of the whole street. Longbottom and Erdish, who were not far from the boat just after disembarking, immediately stopped and turned their heads to look behind. More than a dozen men in black clothes were immediately caught by mermaids on the street. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Found. People ran fast and chased after them, trying to stop the dozen or so people. It's a pirate who grabbed a merman. In an instant, Longbottom and Erdish realized it. They saw that the janissaries at the port had already started to move, holding up their weapons to surround the dozen or so people in the middle. There's no other way, just break through. The man in the lead was carrying a cloth bag, and the others also escaped from the pistols around their waists, and their expressions became grim. The dozen or so people moved very quickly, without the slightest pause under the cold drink of the Imperial Guard. In just an instant, they reached the front of the guards, and then the blood was filled, and they started. These dozen people are ruthless, and their strength is also very terrifying. Among them, 2 devil fruit abilities, and the others' fighting power are also terrifying. Dead leaves bloom. The janissaries were surrounded by dense leaves, but within a short while, they were surrounded into balls of dead leaves, and soon suffocated to death. Without stopping at all, a dozen people walked towards the pirate ship moored at the port. At this moment, the crew members on the Reaper also saw the dozen or so people, and their eyes narrowed. Death pirates. The leading pirate, at the same moment, saw the 10 pirates standing on the Reaper, and his eyes were full of solemnity. They actually have someone on the pirate ship. Now, trouble. In the rear, Longbottom and Erdish were swiftly moving towards here. Chapter 153 Dead Leaves. When this gang of pirates just arrived, the Death God pirates did not arrive. They seized the opportunity, brewed it, and hid it for half a month before they started. However, when it was about to succeed, it was discovered. It's all pirates, they shouldn't shoot at us. The leader glanced at the crew of the Reaper, and then retracted his gaze viciously. What should we do? That group of people robbed the mermaid, should we help? That mother is so pitiful. When I saw her crying, I thought of my mother. Wake up Drizzt and see what he does. The crew chatted loudly with each other, and then hurried to Drizzt. Shaking the latter vigorously, Drizzt slept in a daze and could not wake up, leaving the crew with no way out. Just think, this is a great god who is bound by others and can't wake up. How can he wake up because of these few shakes? What should we do in the end? The crew panicked, saving the mermaid. It was a big or small problem, but there was a big difference between doing it and not doing it, which represented their inclination. Quick, stop them. At this moment, the two of Longbottom who ran over shouted, I can't let them rob the little guy from Fishman Island. The crew members were stunned for a moment, and then immediately acted. They moved quickly and simply, and turned down directly, blocking the front of more than a dozen people. Stop now, we are the Death God pirates. The crew shouted loudly. The expressions of more than a dozen pirates changed, and the last thing they wanted to encounter came. The Death God pirates, just hearing this reputation, made their hearts sink slightly, and the pressure greatly increased. Damn it! The leading pirate stopped his steps. He was hesitating. If he took action against the Death God pirates, he could not imagine what their future would be like, and none of these people in front of him were weak. Put down that mermaid, you can leave. Longbottom also came over at this moment, blocking behind a dozen pirates. Captain, what should I do? Rush over. In the end, the leading pirate just snorted coldly, and a hint of decisiveness flashed in his eyes. The weapons around their waists were pulled out, and they made a decision to rush over. Death pirates. Hee hee, there are rumors about how powerful you are. Let me, Captain Fravor, see today. Fravor strode forward, opened his hands, and the leaves appeared out of thin air in the air ahead, circling, forming vortices one by one, showing astonishing power. Withered leaf pirates, prepare to fight. Yes. The eyes of the crew members of the Death God pirates who were blocking the front became serious, and the other party was actually capable. They also drew out the pistols and long swords around their waists at the same time, and there was an icy chill in their eyes. The two sides approached quickly, killing intent pervading. The speed is very fast, only 3 seconds, the two sides have been in contact. And at this moment, Drizzt, who was sleeping on the deck, was shocked, as if having a nightmare, and bounced off the deck. Where's the crew? Drizzt was stunned, then walked to the bow, and when he saw the scene below, he immediately narrowed his eyes. What is this doing? Withered leaves hovering, Fravor shouted, and endless leaves emerged from his body, entwining towards the crew of the Death God pirates. Longbottom in the back changed his expression and stuck out his right hand. High temperature, burning. PFF'd. A slight voice came out, and Fravor was shocked to find that his leaves were burning and quickly turned to ashes. The crew heaved a sigh of relief, and then fought with the deadleaf pirates who had already arrived in front of them. Longbottom and Erdish in the rear quickly caught up and shot at the same time. Low temperature, freezing. The chill spread, causing everyone present to shudder. The water droplets on the ground turned into ice, and the person touched by Longbottom was directly frozen into an ice cube. At the same time, the other hand was placed on the other person. On the body. High temperature, burn. Ah! With a cry of pain, the man's body burned with flames, howling in pain. This guy. Fravor's eyes shrank, looking at Longbottom's eyes full of horror. Doom is haunted. At the same time, Erdish also activated his own abilities. A strange force wrapped around Fravo's body. In an instant, the latter's whole body was shaken, and his left foot was mixed with his right foot, and he fell directly to the ground. He wanted to get up, but his knee accidentally knocked on the edge of the ice on the ground, blood immediately filled with blood, and he cried out in pain. All the members of the Dead Leaves Pirates who were present suffered bad luck almost instantly. Even without the crew of the Death God Pirates taking action, he fell to the ground. The Dead Leaf Pirates, Captain Fravor, has a bounty of 120 million. Longbottom walked over, recognized Fravor's identity, and sneered, "I didn't expect you to do such a thing. People die for wealth, birds die for food, what's wrong?" Fravor shouted in embarrassment. "There's nothing wrong. It's a pity that our captain has to do something big and can only sacrifice you," Longbottom said gloomily. "Fravor doesn't understand, they are all pirates. It stands to reason that when this kind of thing happens, it is better to have less than one thing." The people of the Death God Pirates actually actively blocked in front of him. Moreover, everyone is human, and the Murlocs are aliens. It makes no sense to help the aliens instead. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. "You are so stupid. Help them," Fravor shouted loudly. "Your IQ, it's impossible to understand the captain's thoughts." Erdish sneered, then waved his hand, "Tie them all up, send them to the boat, and wait for the captain's order." The crew quickly grinned, tied the men together, and rescued the little mermaid. Longbottom looked gloomy and opened the bag. When he saw the newly born mermaid, his eyes softened. The little guy is so brave, he didn't cry. "Yeah, they're here too, give them the baby," Erdish said. Longbottom was stunned for a moment, turned his head to look at the mermaids, and saw that these ordinary mermaids were terrified. Seeing the little mermaid being rescued, their eyes were full of surprise and fear. This fear is for them. "Here, next time you have to protect your child." Longbottom hugged the little mermaid and sent it towards the poor mother. The little mermaid struggled, touched Longbottom's nose with his hand, and then giggled. This scene made everyone present stunned for a moment, and the mermaids became nervous. "This is a vicious big pirate, will this offend him? Ha ha, this little guy." Longbottom laughed and delivered the child to the mother. His laughter made the atmosphere of the venue lively. Chapter 154 Recruiting. "He likes you a lot, Longbottom." Drizzt stepped off the boat, looking a little embarrassed. He couldn't change this sleep problem. "Drizzt," Longbottom said in surprise, "are you on board?" Cough cough. Drizzt coughed violently, and the crew at the rear laughed. This navigator had a problem, and they were completely out of it. Drizzt passed by, swept the Dead Leaf Pirates on the ground, his eyes flashed, and then said, "Longbottom, you did a good job, these scumbags." Then he waved, "Take them to the boat." At this moment, Fravor was completely shocked. When he saw Drizzy's scene, he knew that he was finished. As we all know, none of the original crew members of the Death God Pirates are world-famous powerhouses. They read the news reports, but they were in the Chambord Islands, but they understood the horror of these people even more. Whether it is strength, courage, or will, they are too far from these crew members. In this regard, even Longbottom, who has just joined the Death God Pirates, can't compare to these people. The crew quickly tied the Deadleaf Pirates to the Reaper, and the mermaids who came at this time shouted loudly, "They can't be taken away by you, kidnapping the Murlocs is a big sin." Drizzy's eyes flashed, and Longbottom and Erdish also felt a little troublesome. There is no doubt that if the Dead Leaf Pirates are taken away, there will only be a dead end. "Take it away," Drizzt waved 3 seconds later. The crew complied, and then Drizzt faced the large army of mermaids that came. "I'm Drizzt, these human scum, we'll take care of them, don't worry." The leader who came, saw Drizzt, and immediately his eyes shrank, the life of a person, the shadow of a tree. None of the crew of the Death Pirates is a fuel-efficient lamp. "Get on the boat." Drizzt turned and left, ignoring the merman at the rear, leaving no chance for them to speak. Helplessly, these people watched Drizzt bring everyone onto the boat. The huge ship put a lot of pressure on everyone, and they didn't dare to catch up. This is how it ended. Longbottom and Erdish looked at each other, smiled helplessly, and continued to turn. This incident was only a small twist, and it subsided after a moment of uproar. Drizzt brought the Deadleaf pirates to the Reaper and sat cross-legged on the deck. "You scumbags, talk about it, how do you want to die?" he said in a very indifferent and casual tone, putting a lot of pressure on these dozen people. You can't kill us," said Fravor, trembling. "Oh, can't kill you?" Drizzt laughed. "Are you from the Four Emperors or a celestial dragon? I can't kill you." The crew also burst into laughter, with grim smiles on their faces. "What are you kidding? We are the Grim Reaper pirates." As we all know, mermaids have always been the most popular among Tianlong people and nobles. If we had no background, we would never have appeared on Mermaid Island like this. We have the existence of Tianlong people behind us. Quote, "If you kill us, you'll be in big trouble." Drizzy's eyes narrowed, and the crew members were all shocked. It turned out to be a Tianlong. It really surprised them. "Dragon," Drizzt muttered, and then he laughed. "You think we'd be afraid of them? Just the Draco." This sentence shocked all the Deadleaf pirates, and even the crew of the Reaper was full of admiration. As expected of the navigator, "You are so disdainful and arrogant. Leave this guy alive, keep it useful, and the others will kill and feed the fish." Drizzt pointed to Fravor, and then ordered. In an instant, the crew of the Deadleaf pirates panicked. But it was useless to resist. After a minute, with the sound of pop, everyone except Flavor was thrown out of the sea outside the Reaper. In the palace, Neptune and Yangqing got the news at the same time. The Death God pirates are truly unparalleled in chivalry, teachers of benevolence and righteousness. Neptune exclaimed, "I ordered it immediately. I hope our friendship will last forever." Yangqing smiled and nodded. "You, welcome." Next, he informed Dillons to prepare to recruit mermaids to join the pirates. In a blink of an eye, 2 days have passed. With the help of the crew, and the gifts from Neptune, the ship's reserve items on the Death God pirates were already full, enough to feed 1,000 people for 3 months. On Fishman Street, Dillons and Ernie Rhodes stood here. In front of them was a large queue of mermaids waiting excitedly. These people were all excited to join the Death God pirates after Neptune's order. However, there is no doubt that what the Grim Reaper pirates need is only strong people, and a large number of these people will inevitably be eliminated. "Chaps, you villain, you make trouble all day long. You idle guy, you even want to join the Death God pirates. Nip, stop talking nonsense and be careful I beat you." There were a lot of mermaids waiting in line. They were either troublemakers, soldiers in the army, or civilians. There were all kinds of people. After the Reaper announced the recruitment of crew members, it appeared very positive. "I knew that the captain was going to do this." Dillons had a headache. He really didn't want to get involved in such a thing. "Bucky, Glades, you." This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. "Let's do this." Bucky and Glades exclaimed excitedly, recruiting crew members. Such a handsome profession actually made them responsible. "No problem," Bucky yelled, then pushed Dillons away and stood at the front. Dillons's eyes trembled, feeling a little bad, but at this moment, Annalou also said, "I'll come too." "Now, I'm relieved." Dillons breathed a sigh of relief. Anyway, Annalou looked very reliable. The three crossed Dillons and stood in front of the long queue of mermaids, and Bucky said loudly, "Now, each of you will attack Glades. Then, we will judge your strength and the qualified stand behind us. Do you understand?" The mermaid nodded, then expressed understanding. "It's just a punch, that's easy to understand." Soon, the first merman came to Glades. "Punch." Glades nodded. Me, where do I hit?" The mermaid said incoherently when she saw Glades, obviously very excited. "Whatever you want," Glades said softly. "Ha!" The mermaid was not polite, and punched Glades directly. PFF'd. When Bucky saw the part where the mermaid was aiming, he sprayed it out at once, and Annalou also quivered at the corner of his mouth and laughed. Chapter 155 _ Glades looked at the mermaid in front of him with a black face, and almost shouted, "Do you have any grudge against me, kid?" The part that the mermaid aimed at was Glades' crotch. Bang! The dull voice sounded, and the fist stopped 3 inches from Glades' body, unable to move forward. Glades waved his hand and said with a dark face, "Unqualified." The merman looked disappointed and backed away. "This kid is absolutely heartless. Lord Glades dares to beat him. If I were Glades, I'd have to slap him to death." "So you're just an obscure merman." In the group of mermaids, they snickered and discussed the scene just now. Soon, the mermaids were tested one by one. Glades is in charge of testing their strengths, Annalou is in charge of judging a person's character by using the heart net, and Bucky is in charge of maintaining order. Labor and management, with such a great power, you don't want me. The mermaid standing in front of Glades shouted angrily. "The heart is too bad, we don't need it," Amy Rhodes said expressionlessly. The mermaid was furious and moved her hand. At this time, Bucky shouted and pressed his hand directly in front of the mermaid, "Fractured." Boom! There was a slight sound in the air, and then people saw that the mermaid was covered in broken marks, rolled nearly 30 meters to the rear, and fainted with a crooked head. "I am merciful, go back and reflect on it," Bucky shouted loudly. This time, the extreme and irritable among the mermaids calmed down. The recruitment continued, and on this day, it was 2 people who made Glades' complexion change slightly. One is called Sharps and the other is called Nip. These 2 people, their skills and strength are very good. The air barrier in front of Glades was shattered, and it was confirmed by Annalou's heart network that both of them were both mature-minded people who valued friendship and friendship. During this time, Yang Qing was in the Dragon Palace. He saw the Murloc princess who was still young at the moment. At this time, the Murloc princess was still hazy, looking very cute and cute. Even though the figure is a bit huge, Yang Qing is also very small when standing in front of him. The Death God pirates rarely had such a relaxing moment as they were on Fishman Island, and everyone took advantage of this time to rest. During this time, Yang Qing exchanged the secret book of 13 Swords of Death through the system. He practices swordsmanship and naturally pays attention to swordsmanship secrets. Before, he practiced the Dugu 9 swords to the pinnacle, and then merged with himself to condense new sword moves, basically forming an instinct. Combined with the essence of the pirate world, his swordsmanship can be described as very powerful, and it is no problem to cut the sky and the earth. Of course, compared to Hawkeye, a great swordsman with extreme concentration, there is still some gap. The 13 swords that kill you, the swords and the swords are chained together, and the murderous intentions are constant. If you don't pay attention, you will die. Yang Qing took pictures of this cheat book, and the streamer flashed. In an instant, countless figures flashed in his mind. As he moved, changing countless positions, the sword shadow was vertical and horizontal, and it was almost impossible to see. It is said that this sword technique transcends the mortal world and can lead to the 14th sword. At that time, it will turn around and reach the step of controlling people with the sword. Sword demons are born, killing the sky and destroying the earth. Yang Qing's eyes flashed. He naturally did not well tolerate such situations. Controlled by the sword, it is no longer a man, but a sword man. Closing his eyes, he began to realize the truth of this swordsmanship. The truth of this swordsmanship is to kill with one word. The killing intent soaring to the sky, this killing intent is earth-shattering, capable of destroying everything, and it is a swordsmanship that was turned into murder. The sword is fierce, and the sword is bloody. Every time he practiced advanced sword techniques, he would integrate the latter with what he had learned. All he thought was to be able to create a book of swordsmanship, that was his own. Only what is suitable is the most powerful. Of course, this is still a long way off, and requires a very broad experience and insight. Fortunately, over time, the system can give him a lot of cheats to accomplish this. Pirate World Devil Fruit Ability, 3-color domineering, various physical skills, swordsmanship covers the world, but it doesn't pay much attention to moves. I prefer to conquer 10 guilds with one force. The sword moves in the martial arts world are difficult to deal with. Tricks, more focus on dexterity, speed. Quote. Yang Qing's eyes are flickering, so he needs to improve, open and close the sword tricks, follow the local customs, and adapt to the world of pirates. Or, it should be said that it is still useful in the early stage, but it is more suitable for the attack method like Hawkeye in the later stage. Don't you see, in the Battle of the Top, Whitebeard's punch, the whole island turned upside down, the earthquake continued, and the Eagle Eye's sword directly cut the earth. This kind of enormous power is something that Yang Qing has never been able to possess in any martial arts world that Yang Qing has come into contact with before. In other words, the system at the moment is very difficult to help Yang Qing, and his limitations are too great. I don't know when these question marks at the top of this system can be opened. I always feel that the secrets hidden in these question marks must be huge. Maybe at that time, what is hidden under these question marks will help me the most. The top of the martial arts is to become an immortal, to break through the void. Will there be such a thing? Yang Qing was puzzled, but looked forward to it. Half a month has passed quickly, and the number of Murloc pirates recruited by the Death God pirates has now reached 35, which is still less than 15 from the expected 50. This is impossible, the three of Bucky will be strangled to death. On this day, there was a lot of chaos at the port of Fishman Island. This riot stirred up the entire Fishman Island, plunged the island into a panic, and awakened Yang Qing, who was in retreat and comprehends swordsmanship. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Dispersing his knowledge, Yang Qing's eyes flashed. Tianlong people actually came here. At the port, a ship in distress came here. It caused the fish people on the street to riot. Because the people who came this time are not ordinary people, but Tianlong people. The legendary Tianlong people do all kinds of evil, and they are born to terrify the world. Let go of your port and let us in. On the ship in distress was a Tianlong man with a bubble. His expression was indifferent and fierce. This loud shout made the soldiers at the port nervous and angry. The Tianlong people, the ones they hate the most are the Tianlong people, and the scum among the nobles of the world is the one who hurts Fishman Island the most. At this moment, there were even countless civilians who ran back home and came out of breath, their hands trembling and trembling, holding their pistols tightly. These people are all Murlocs who have been hurt by Tianlong people. Princess Otoji walked out quickly, her face was nervous and serious. She knew in her heart that this was a turmoil, and if it was not handled properly, it would be a disaster. The port opened slowly. The wrecked ship of the Tianlong people slowly entered the port. At this moment, Fravor on the Reaper trembled and shouted loudly. Help, help, I'm the servant of Saint Delos. On the celestial dragon boat, the indifferent gaze of the celestial dragon with bubbles turned to look at the incomparably huge ship beside him. Oh! Chapter 156 Hack him to death. On the Reaper, Fravor shouted, attracting the attention of the crew, and immediately grinned and hit the rear. After more than 10 seconds, Fravor's nose was bruised and his face was swollen, and he was lying there breathless. Ask for help from the Tianlong people. You are so brave, the crew sneered. Have you forgotten who we are? We are the Death God pirates. Tianlong looked at the incomparably huge pirate ship beside him, and when he saw the pirate flag flying in the wind above it, his expression changed immediately, his pupils shrank, and his heart suddenly accelerated. It's them, Tianlongren said in shock, and his expression instantly became complicated. Bowing his head, the Tianlong man pretended not to see, but in fact his heart was beating unsatisfactorily. He quickly crossed into the port and pretended not to see it. On the Reaper, Drizzt leaned halfway and fell asleep, not responding at all to this scene. At this moment, Princess Yiji and others had walked out with a solemn expression. As soon as she appeared here, she saw the weapons in some people's hands, her expression changed slightly, and her heart was extremely heavy. The hatred of the Murlocs towards the Tianlong people is very deep. This is very difficult to resolve. Now that the stranded Tianlong people came to the Fishman Island, they are very likely to be hurt by these fishmen. The Tianlongren's boat slowly docked, and then a group of people walked off the boat. The leader was the proud Tianlongren with Bubbles. He was slightly tall, and his eyes were full of indifference and pride. My ship was wrecked and needs to be repaired here for a while. The Tianlong man stepped off the ship and said indifferently. This high-spirited tone immediately made the fish people's hands tighten, and their eyes were full of anger. Who does he think he is, so proud? It's just a dead dragon man. That's right, I really want to kill him. The crowd had already started to riot, and Princess Yiji's expression changed. She strode forward and walked in front of the Tianlong people, blocking the pistols in the hands of the civilians in the crowd, making people's expressions change. No, it's Princess Otoji, who was blocked. People's hearts are complicated. For this kind and benevolent princess, they only have respect in their hearts, and they can't do it at all. In the Dragon Palace, Yang Qing slowly got up and walked towards the port. He wanted to see how to deal with this matter with the power of Princess Yiji. If it was the same as in the original book, then he could only shake his head in disappointment. It is a good thing to yearn for peaceful coexistence, but peace is not something that can only be obtained by benevolence. Respect your Excellency Tianlongren, I am Princess Yiji of Fishman Island, and I welcome you on behalf of Fishman Island. Princess Yiji saluted neither humbly nor arrogantly, and the etiquette was very thoughtful. The Tianlongren glanced around, his heart trembled slightly, he could see the unwelcome of everyone here, and the killing intent deep in his eyes, he was still a little scared. Nodding absent-mindedly, the Tianlong people wanted to leave here. After thinking about it, the two mermaid loli that I just played bad, the Tianlong people are even more afraid. There is something wrong with my ship, and I will leave after it is repaired here. The dragon man explained. Yes, we Murlocs are very eager to coexist peacefully with the Tianlong people. Princess Yiji saw that the attitude of the Tianlong people was not so indifferent, she was overjoyed and took the opportunity to make this suggestion. However, she did not see the fear in the eyes of the Tianlong people. Yes, Murlocs are a very good race, Tianlong said, thinking of the extraordinary pleasure that can be obtained when playing Murlocs. Then, can I sign a friendly and peaceful agreement with the Tianlong nobles on behalf of Fishman Island? Princess Otahime said expectantly. At this moment, she made an extremely stupid and naive mistake. Tianlong Ren was stunned for a moment, his eyes flashed with playfulness, he looked at the eyes of the fish people present, then at Princess Yiji, and finally smiled sarcastically. Of course, peace, everyone desires. That's great, Princess Yiji said happily. However, this agreement requires you to go to the World Court with us to sign this agreement, and it also requires the approval of other nobles, doesn't it? Tianlongren said with a smile. Of course, I can go with you. Princess Otoji was very happy. No. Princess, no, they have no good intentions. It's too dangerous, Princess, you can't go. The bystanders are clear, but the fish people see the danger of this matter, and they all stop it loudly. The light flashed in Tianlongren's eyes, but he just smiled and looked at everything that happened in front of him, he thought it was very interesting. Princess Otoji suppressed everyone's criticism, and arranged a team of guards to help the Tianlong people repair the ship together. The princess is really an excellent mermaid. Compared with these people, your vision is more long-term. I admire you very much. The Tianlong person smiled and said, it should be very good to play. Soon, the ship was repaired, and the supplies were also replenished, and the dragon fleet was about to set off. Then, Princess Yiji, you can go with us. Tianlongren invited. Otoji nodded, she decided to go, even if she sacrificed herself for the sake of peace. As long as there is a glimmer of hope, she will not give up, even if there is a trap in front of her. Yang Qing carried the long sword on his back and walked slowly forward. From a distance, he had already seen the large group of people surrounding the port, and could hear the conversation between the two at the front. Please give way. Yang Qing stepped forward, and the strange force directly sent the. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. People push away. You are. When people saw Yang Qing's face, they immediately covered their mouths in shock. When Yang Qing walked over slowly, leaving only his back, a trembling voice came out just now with a horrified face. Death, Lucifer. The commotion at the back of the crowd did not make the people in front realize that everyone who saw Yang Qing spontaneously moved out of the way. One is because of his terrifying status, and the other is respect from the bottom of his heart. During this period of time, these people were either familiar, friends, or relatives, and they all joined the Death God Pirates and became a glorious member of the latter pirates. This is the first man who has abandoned merman and human prejudice, and they respect it very much. Ahead, Princess Otoji and Tianlong Ren were already approaching the ship. Trust me, Princess, you helped me, I will not disappoint the princess. The Tianlong people smiled, which contained multiple meanings. Princess Yiji had a luxurious and dignified face, and nodded slightly, followed by a dozen guards behind her. The two stepped up and were ready to board the boat immediately. At this moment, the front of the crowd suddenly separated, and a young figure jumped out. His face was indifferent, and he spoke softly. Princess Yiji, if I were you, I would definitely not go with him. I will only hack him to death. In an instant, the whole scene was chaotic. Chapter 157 Declaring War on Whitebeard. The people were shocked, and a look of surprise appeared on Princess Yiji's face. The Tianlong people's smile turned into horror at a speed visible to the naked eye. Looking at Yang Qing's familiar face, the corners of his mouth were trembling and shaking. Road, Sifa, holy. His voice was so small that only he could hear it, and he couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Princess Otoji stood up beside her, and her heart was full of shock at this moment. Holy. He is a Tianlong person. Yang Qing strode over and came to the front of Princess Yiji. Her face was indifferent, and her body did not exude a trace of breath, but that natural aura made everyone present bow their heads. Tell me, do you know me? Recognize. Tianlongren said in horror. I promise the old man that I won't do anything to you, but don't interfere in my affairs without authorization. Yang Qing said softly, his eyes full of killing intent. From today on, Fishman Island is my territory. Do you understand? Tianlong people, as well as various nobles and pirates, are not allowed to take action against them. The Tianlong people were shocked, and Princess Yiji fell into a sluggishness. The mermaids on the Fishman Island were stunned for a moment, and then the pistols in their hands quietly fell to the ground, and happy smiles appeared on their faces. Ming, I understand, Tianlong said fearfully. He is also a Tianlong person, but he is really just like Yang Qing's younger brother Jess said, and he doesn't even have the courage to stand in front of Yang Qing. He thought he was outstanding enough, but at this moment, just in the face of the former's killing intent, it already made him tremble, not to mention courage. Then get out. The unceremonious words made the Tianlong people look happy and left here quickly. The Tianlong people's ship quickly left here. Princess Otoji looked at the young man beside her with a complicated expression, and felt very emotional in her heart. She heard the whisper of the dragon man just now, and she understood Yang Qing's true identity. Peace is not something that can be obtained by blindly compromising. Yang Qing said seriously to Yiji, this time, I will help you, but in the future, you need to work hard on your own. At any time, the world will only look at the strong. What you need to do is to make people fish, make Fishman Island strong, make others respect you, and make others fear you. If you fall behind, you will be beaten, and peace is in your own hands, that's what makes sense. Princess Otoji didn't understand this, which led to her tragic end in the original book. And including Fisher Tiger, the former Fishman pirate group, they just didn't figure out how to do it. Thank you, Lucifer, Your Excellency. Eiji paused and said seriously. The agreement on peace will be handed over to the World Court in the near future. Yang Qing said with a smile, after all, we have already reached an alliance, and I don't want you to make any mistakes. Turning his head, Yang Qing was about to leave. Your Excellency Lucifer. Princess Yi stopped Yang Qing, and then said worriedly, "At this moment, Fishman Island is still under the control of Whitebeard. What you said just now may have offended him." Yang Qing took a step, his eyes flashed, and he saw the huge flag planted in the sky of the Fishman Island, Whitebeard. The world's #1 powerhouse, the most powerful force among the 4 emperors. It is impossible for anyone to mention such a character without pressure. Compared with the Battle of the Top in the original book, the Whitebeard at this moment is undoubtedly his peak period. His combat power and physical strength were at their peak, and no one dared to stroke his beard at this moment. Interesting. Yang Qing smiled. "I just want to try the world's #1 gas." "Are you sure?" Obviously, he has no certainty, but it is not enough that he does not even have the courage to fight. When he really stepped into the vast area of the New World, when the two encountered each other, no one knew whether there was power or not. Suddenly, Yang Qing felt the blood in his body boiling, and his whole body trembled slightly. He suddenly wanted to try the power of the world's #1, and wanted to play against him. This urge burst out from within the body, and no matter what, it could not be suppressed. Suddenly, he turned around. The Fishman Island, from now on, is Lao Su's territory. Yang Qing faced the entire Fishman Island and shouted loudly. He looked directly at the excited mermaids in front of him, and the domineering look covered the audience. "You guys, have any opinions?" Roar. The fish people howled loudly, they shouted happily and were very excited. How can there be any opinions? Compared with Whitebeard, they have received real equality and real respect in the Death God Pirates. No. The sound was so loud that the whole island trembled. Princess Yi stood blankly, watching this scene with 1,000 thoughts in her heart. There is no doubt that at this moment, Yang Qing really captured the hearts of the mermaids. He became the hero in the eyes of all the fish on Fishman Island. "Analu!" Yang Qing shouted loudly. A flash of lightning flashed, and Analu came to Yang Qing. In the distance of the crowd, all the Death God Pirates watched this scene with enthusiasm. They just saw clearly that their boss took a step, and with just 2 or 3 words, the Tianlong people fled away in fright, and in turn, without fear of Whitebeard's might, they included Fishman Island arrogantly into their own. In the territory. This kind of aura, this kind of courage, can be called a real hero. "Yes," Analu shouted in a low voice. "Knock down that flag for me. Yang Qingshan, extend your right hand, index finger and point to the highest point." This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Flag waving in the wind. "No problem." Analu nodded, pointed with a long stick, and lightning struck. Ziz. That flag, representing the Whitebeard pirates, was on fire at this moment. The flag burning in the wind caused countless people's blood to boil at this moment, their scalps exploded, and their fists were pinched. What they saw a fearless pirate group, declaring war against the strongest in the world. They saw 2 powerful pirate groups that are world famous in the world, will collide fiercely in the near future. Burning the flag means a declaration of war. This declaration of war will cause a huge tsunami around the world. In the distance, everyone in the Death God Pirates looked at Yang Qing's actions, stunned, and clenched their fists. "Damn, just like this, we're going to fight the Whitebeard pirates," Bucky said incredulously. "Obviously, that's it." Glades covered his forehead. Then, they watched Longbottom and Erdish raise their pirate flags to the top of Fishman Island, fluttering in the wind and shaking. Countless mermaids were cheering, jumping, and celebrating, and the atmosphere of the whole island suddenly became extremely high. "Captain, you really have great spirit." Longbottom and Erdish, looking at the flag high in the sky, their blood boiled. Chapter 158 Deployment. Who is that? That is Whitebeard. How many pirates are there in the world who dare to take action against the Whitebeard pirates? In this era, it can be simply said that it is called the era of Whitebeard. This is the age of one man, the age of the strongest. After One Piece, Whitebeard. He is the pinnacle and peak of the pirates in this era. No one is fighting, and he is truly invincible. He has an incomparably terrifying power, capable of destroying an island in an instant. Even if the sea soldiers, 3 generals, marshals, and many lieutenant generals come together, they may not be able to deal with them. No one dared to fight against them, but Yang Qing dared. He declared war, really declared war, without the slightest joke. 3 days later, the Death God pirates set off from Fishman Island and headed for the New World. On the Reaper. Withered leaves. Yang Qing looked at the embarrassed flavor on the ground, his eyes flashed, and he said with a smile, "Do leaves also have natural fruits?" "It's superhuman," Drizzt corrected, and Longbottom and Erdish laughed. "Then kill it, it's not bad to get a devil fruit." Yang Qing waved his hand casually. Fravor's expression on the deck changed instantly, and he shouted for mercy. But after only 2 seconds, he lost his breath and was thrown off the ship by Erdish. Yang Qing's right hand suddenly stretched out and out, his right hand was closed, and an inexplicable aura that had just dissipated in the air was gathered together by him. "Bring a fruit here, anything will do," Yang Qing said quickly. "Over there." Anilu threw the apple that was about to be bitten in his mouth. The apple crossed a ray of light, and suddenly stopped when it reached a square-foot radius beside Yang Qing. Afterwards, Yang Qing fused the breath gathered in his hand with the apple. In just 1 minute, the apple underwent a drastic change, vibrating constantly, and strange spiral patterns appeared on its surface. It turned into a devil fruit in front of everyone's eyes. This, boss, you can create a devil fruit." Longbottom shouted loudly, and Erdish was also shocked. "It's just a new skill, it's just to gather the devil fruit that is about to dissipate again." Yang Qing waved his hand and tossed the devil fruit in his hand. Flavor's murderous name is completely derived from killing, and doing evil things. Killing him and getting a devil fruit is also a good choice. Quote. Immediately afterwards, he looked at the crew on the ship. "Then, who will eat this fruit?" Speaking of which, there are really very few incapable main crew members on the ship at this moment, almost none, only Moria is the only one. Others, almost all have devil fruit abilities. Thinking of this, Yang Qing began to have a headache. "Moria, do you want to eat?" Yang Qing asked. The latter shook his head firmly and said crisply, "This thing is too unpalatable, I won't eat it if I kill it, and I don't like the ability of leaves." Yang Qing touches his nose. "Good guy, some people still refuse the devil fruit. Such a piece is 100 million Baileys anyway." He turned his eyes to the 50 mermaids who were sailors. All the mermaids looked scared when they saw the pirate group, and said loudly, "We don't want it either. For us, we can't live in the sea. Traveling in the middle of nowhere is fatal." Shaking his head helplessly, Yang Qing turned his gaze to the other crew members. This time is different from before, everyone looked at the devil fruit with anticipation. "This is a devil fruit, you can become stronger if you eat it." However, there are too many of these people, and Yang Qing is in trouble again. In the end, he has no choice. You fight, whoever is the strongest. I will give this devil fruit to whoever. There are opportunities, it depends on whether you can work hard. In a word, the crew members were all excited. At the same time as the crew began to duel, Yang Qing led Dylan's to the conference room. In the long meeting room, the lights are bright, and the electricity is provided by Amy Road, making it no different from the outside. The main reason to call everyone here is to make a summary of what we did on Fishman Island. Yang Qing tapped on the table and said in a deep voice. In the conference room at the moment, including Dylan's and other old members, there are also Longbottom, Erdish, and the 2 captains of the Mermaid, Nip and Chaps. A group of people sat face to face in the conference room, with Yang Qing in the upper position. Since there are all members of the management of my Death God pirates here, I will no longer hide some words, so I will say it directly. Yang Qing said slowly, Fishman Island has allied with me and turned into my pirates. The site, without a doubt, is a big step forward. Quote. Just speaking of the geographical location of Fishman Island, its importance is self-evident that it is a must pass through the New World and the first half of the route. So, In fact, before entering this island, I already had the idea of taking it as the territory of my death pirates. The people present looked at each other, a little surprised. Boss, what's so important about Fishman Island? And Fishman Island is occupied by Whitebeard and protected by it, so it doesn't seem like a wise move for us to stick it horizontally. Bucky asked loudly. Fishman Island occupies such an important position. Every pirate group wants to enter the New World. They have to pass through Fishman Island, and my Death God pirates are currently in a period of rapid development, whether it is a territory or a power. It is much worse than any pirate group entrenched in the New World at this moment. Quote. You must know that the New World is not just the four emperors. Yang Qing's words were sonorous and powerful, awakening everyone. But this is the case. The forces of the New World are mixed. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Not only the four emperors, this is a route that is not much different from the first half of the route, and there are not many islands scattered on it. I don't know how many pirates occupy the islands. The four sovereigns are only the four largest and most powerful forces in the New World. If you divide it into a yardstick, then the four emperors are the top four of these forces, but the following forces will never be too bad, and even the death gods may not be able to compare. At the moment, they know too little about the New World. I know too little, so we have to prepare early, and Fishman Island is the first step. In the future, I will order to recruit pirates who pass through here on Fishman Island to enrich our pirate group. Everyone nodded. It turns out that the pirates who can come here after the first half are all very potential. If he joins the Death God pirates, he will surely usher in another leap in strength in a very short period of time. Yang Qing's plan was to use Fishman Island as a base for the troops and divisions of the Death God pirates. As for Whitebeard, in any case, our relationship with him is only hostile. There is no difference between declaring war early and declaring war late. Also, I'm not necessarily afraid of him. You know, we are still 108,000 miles away from them at the moment, when we reach that sea area. Say more. Chapter 159 Whitebeard. Talk later. Black lines appeared on everyone's faces, and they complained about Yang Qing. How can you be so indifferent when facing a big enemy like Whitebeard? The heart is too strong. Whitebeard is only one of our enemies. You must relax your heart and take the first step into the New World. Our enemies are those areas that have not yet been completely controlled by the four emperors. Yang Qing's words were powerful and serious, causing everyone present to have flickering eyes with anticipation. Fifth Emperor, what kind of status is that? It can be said that every pirate who rushes to the sea aspires to become the pirate king. Whether they are wanton evil or trying to become stronger, they have such a great dream in their hearts. It's just that on the way forward, countless difficulties made them retreat and gave them self-knowledge. For most people, dreams are really just dreams. And if you want to become One Piece, you have to surpass the four emperors with the rungs in front of you. The initial strategy is set like this. Based on Fishman Island, go to the New World and gradually devour the four emperors and devour the remaining forces. Yang Qing's eyes flickered, and he patted the table. So, what are you good for? Suggestions. Captain, can we Murlocs be in charge of the Fishman Island? I have a few friends who are still on the Fishman Island. I can persuade me. They joined the pirates as our team's candidate to be stationed on Fishman Island. That's the best. Yang Qing smiled and nodded. I'll leave it to you, Sharps. Shaps nodded slightly. His eyes were very excited. This was his first request. The captain gave him unreserved trust. The selection of new people. Don't think about it. This is also a very important task. Nip bumped into him, feeling very upset. So, what about the others? Yang Qing asked again. Let me tell you a few words. According to reliable sources, the Navy is working on a plan called Wuhai. Dylan said solemnly, the selection conditions for Wuhai are because of his reputation among pirates, or his high strength. Absolute man. I think we can fight for this spot. Before the pirates are immature, it will serve as a protective umbrella. Yang Qing nodded. Dylan's suggestion is very good. In fact, he has already made a move. Yes. He looked around, then said, any other issues? I want to know, what is the goal of our first battle in the New World? Bucky said excitedly, and he was very excited to see Shanks soon. Drizzt. Yang Qing looked at Drizzt. The latter narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, Dressrosa, it is still a powerless zone, we may be able to fight for it. Yang Qing smiled and nodded, then here it is. Strategy, still take gentle measures and find a way to form an alliance. I heard that Dressrosa has a kingdom, can gentle methods succeed? Longbottom asked curiously. First rights and then soldiers, if you can't be gentle, then destroy him. Yang Qing said solemnly, revealing a murderous intent on his body, what kind of enemy we will face in the future, and a trace of kindness will lead us to the abyss. Next, seeing that everyone was silent, Yang Qing clapped his hands and led them outside. During the battle, the crew members were all lying on the ground covered in scars. At this moment, only a young man named Korra was standing there with excitement on his face, looking at the group of people who came out. Yo, Korra, you won. Longbottom whistled, and Erdish also had a smile on his face. Yang Qing nodded and threw the devil fruit to the latter. Since you win, this devil fruit will be yours, work hard. Korra held the devil fruit in her hands excitedly, and said loudly, it's the captain, I will try my best to become stronger, to expand the territory for my Death God pirates, and to assist the captain to become the Pirate King is my lifelong dream. Yang Qing didn't know whether to laugh or cry, how could he suddenly become someone else's belief? Other people don't need to worry. In the future, you will inevitably have enemies, devil fruits, and you. If any of you can bring the power of devil fruits, this captain doesn't mind taking action for you. Yang Qing said laughing, giving the crew a glimmer of hope. He can remember the beast Kaido in the original book, who has more than 500 people in his hands, what a scale this is. If the Death God pirates can have more than 1,000 capable people. Yang Qing was quite looking forward to it. You must know that in the later stage of One Piece, it is definitely not one person who can dominate the world. It is Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world. He also has many pirates under his command, and he has just achieved the status of the Whitebeard pirates. And Luffy and the others, more or less, have also secretly and explicitly owned numerous alliances along the way. It is conceivable that these people will become his strength in the later stage. The Reaper was rapidly rising on the bottom of the sea, surrounded by countless bubbles and countless fish. An hour later, the Reaper swooped out of a certain sea area in the New World. The endless waves rolled, and the huge Reaper brought a huge wave. The crew members' eyes lit up, and immediately looked around. The moment they saw it clearly, their expressions suddenly changed drastically. This guy, is the sea going to kill us? Bucky roared in horror, and Yang Qing's eyes flashed solemnly. In the huge sea area, tens of thousands of kilometers, the sky is covered with dark clouds, thunder and lightning are horizontal and vertical, the wind is howling, the sea is constantly ups and downs, and there are countless eddies on the sea. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. There were even tornadoes floating around, right in front of them. It was a huge tsunami, and the huge body of the Death God was as small as an ant in such a celestial phenomenon. Deep in the New World, in a sea area near Ralph Drew. The white-bearded pirate flag fluttered in the wind, and the sky was an endless blue. Boom blah blah. The huge figure sat on the seat and poured wine into his mouth, and soon a huge jar of wine was drained by him. Then, the huge figure clapped the handle of the chair beside him and roared angrily. Have I burned down Lao Tzu's pirate flag and occupied Fishman Island? What a guts, young boy. Dad, this ignorant boy, leave it to me to deal with it, and I will let him know that his new pirate group is no different from a cub. Flower with a top hat and a mustache sword, Vista said loudly. Huh. Whitebeard tilted his head and looked at Vista. The thick domineering arrogance instantly enveloped the entire Whitebeard pirates, and even the entire sea area was shocked by its terrifying momentum, and the constantly fluctuating sea surface fell into calm. Chapter 160 The Fifth Emperor. Between frowns, it seems that even the sea is afraid of this man's aura. This is the strongest man above the sea, and his domineering level has reached the point where the breath he inadvertently emits is enough to shock the sea. It's not enough. Whitebeard shook his head, and his dull voice buzzed. That kid, from the point of view of the seaman's attention, has already reached the level of a general. On the boat, many captains were surprised. Marco. Whitebeard looked at the tall and thin man beside him. Go and measure their strength and see if they are qualified to be my enemy. It's rare to see such a bold boy. Marco was stunned, then nodded and said, Got it, Dad. Crash. Whitebeard stood up from his seat, tall, looking like a small hill, heavy and powerful. His aura filled the air, causing the whole sea to shake. It seems that just a slight movement will cause the space to vibrate. At this time, he is the most powerful period. He is not afraid of all challenges, but yearns for it. I hope this kid can give me some surprises. Marco withdrew, and he led the first group of people in a small boat, heading towards the entrance of the New World quickly. Such provocative actions of the Whitebeard pirates and the Death God pirates can't be regarded as not seen. If the strength is not enough, then they will lose the right to survive in the New World. Marco, let that kid know the rules of being a pirate. When they were leaving, the captains of the Whitebeard pirates had a ferocious and gloomy tone. No pirate group will be kind and friendly towards the enemy. Dare to burn their flag, the Death God pirates, has been firmly remembered by Whitebeard and others. I will, Marco said coldly. At the same time, the whole New World began to boil. In the Red Hair Pirates. Wow, boss, Lucifer's group is really amazing. Usopp looked at the news in his hand in shock, his face full of surprise. They actually provoked Whitebeard and declared war on Whitebeard. Fishman Island took the past. Shanks' eyes narrowed, a touch of domineering spread around, and a sea breeze passed by, and then he said solemnly, This kid, a little anxious. However, he is really decisive and domineering. I'm afraid, next, his behavior will explode even more. Slowly pressing the western sword on his waist, Shanks looked at the direction of the New World exit with a serious expression. I hope to see you, sweep away all difficulties, and come to me. Let's drink together, drink hometown wine. The Four Emperors, the Beast Pirates. Ahaha, there is a great opponent. Did you actually declare war on Whitebeard? Kaido's eyes flashed with bloodthirsty light, and his breath revealed a trace of madness and animal nature. He was breathing heavily like a beast, and Kaido was shaking all over at this moment. Shake. I want to tear them apart. Thorn. The reward in his hand was smashed into pieces by Kaido unceremoniously. Afterwards, the terrifying creature stood up directly from his seat, and despite the obstruction of the crew behind him, he left here alone. Let me Kaido kill them all alone. The Four Emperor Kaido, when he heard the news of the Death God pirates, even disregarded anyone's stop, and went towards the Death Pirates. At the same time, when he moved here, the expression of the red-haired pirates also changed. This mad dog. The redhead gave an order with an ugly expression and a cold face, stop them. There are also the generals who are stationed in the New World, the Black-Wrist Zephyr, who has retreated behind the scenes, and the Sakazuki codenamed Akainu, also set out from the base and headed towards Kaido's path. For Emperor Kaido, we're going to be dispatched. Among the sea soldiers, they fell into a panic. Act immediately and stop Kaido, this beast, this New World, the only thing that cannot be tolerated is this madman's running around. Black-Wrist Zephyr said loudly. A group of warships rushed out of the naval station and headed towards Kaido. In just an instant, because of the Death God pirates, the three emperors above the sea began to move. In the New World, a new turmoil has arisen. The four emperors attacked, countless forces along the way, with panic on their faces, their hearts speeding up, paying attention to everything here. Marine Corps Headquarters, Marin Fando. The Death God pirates openly declared war on Whitebeard and robbed Fishman Island. This news made Warring State's first reaction be shock, and then his eyes shrank, seeing through the huge meaning behind this move. What a terrible boy, he has such great ambitions, he wants to become the 5th emperor on the sea. Warring States took a breath and said loudly. Garp raised his head to look at the Warring States, bit the donut in his mouth, and then buzzed, the 5th emperor. Warring States, are you thinking too much? It can't be wrong, his ambition, my judgment is definitely not wrong. Warring States said calmly, when he came to Fishman Island, according to the normal path of the development of ordinary pirate groups, he must first hold his troops and enter. After the New World, silently annex the forces, develop their own strength, and act only when the time is ripe. Quote. But this kid, he didn't do it, he was too ambitious and too smart. Sengoku spread the map in front of Garp. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. And then said solemnly, look, this is the power at the entrance to the New World, this is Punk Hasad, this is Dressrosa, and there are countless tiny islands around it. There are countless small islands, and on these islands, there are large or small pirates stationed. Because these islands are too far away from the 4 emperors, therefore, most of the forces at the entrance are actually non-influenced areas. They are fighting each other, and they are standing still, devouring the new forces that come and go, the new pirate group, to grow by this. Myself. For this reason, the pirate group here is the most chaotic area, and even the Navy can't get involved. It's too chaotic here, and the competition is unimaginably fierce. And the purpose of this kid is this, a huge area no less than 1/2 the size of the 4 emperors. Sengoku pointed at the large circle with a serious expression, his right hand was trembling and shaking slightly. He wants to firmly control the entrance in his own hands. Then, wait for the opportunity to become the 5th emperor above the sea.